Chapter 8. And it was in the night that Abraham was born, that all the servants of Terah, and all the wise men of Nimrod, and his conjurers came and ate and drank in the house of Terah. And they rejoiced with him on that night. And when all the wise men and conjurers went out from the house of Terah, they lifted up their eyes toward the heavens that night to look at the stars. Then they looked and saw one very large star come from the east and ran in the heavens. And he swallowed up the 4 stars from the 4 sides of the heavens. Moreover, all the wise men of the king and his conjurers were astonished by the sight. And the sages understood this matter, and they knew its importance. And they said to each other, "This only concerns the child that has been born to Terah tonight, who will grow up and be fruitful, and multiply, and possess all the earth, he and his children forever. Also, he and his seed will slay great kings, and inherit their lands." Then the wise men and conjurers went home that night. Furthermore, in the morning, all these wise men and conjurers rose up early, and assembled in an appointed house. Then they spoke and said to each other, "Behold, the sight that we saw last night is hidden from the king. It has not been made known to him. And should this thing become known to the king, later he will say to us, 'Why did you conceal this matter from me?' And then we will all suffer death. Therefore, now let us go and tell the king the sight that we saw and its interpretation. And then we will remain clear." So they did this, and they all went to the king and bowed down to him to the ground. And they said, "May the king live, may the king live. We heard that a son was born to Terah, the son of Nahor, the prince of your army. Therefore we went to his house last night, and we ate and drank and rejoiced with him that night. And when your servants went out from the house of Terah to go to our own homes to abide there for the night, we lifted up our eyes to the heavens, and we saw a great star coming from the east. And the same star ran with great speed, and swallowed up 4 great stars from the 4 sides of the heavens. And your servants were astonished at the sight which we saw, and were greatly terrified. And we made our judgment upon the sight, and by our wisdom we knew its interpretation, that this thing applies to the child that is born to Terah, who will grow up and multiply greatly, and become powerful, and kill all the kings of the earth, and inherit all their lands, he and his seed forever. And now, our Lord and King, behold, we have truly acquainted you with what we have seen concerning this child. If it seems good to the king to give his father value for this child, we will slay him before he will grow up and increase in the land, and his evil increases against us, such that we and our children perish by his evil." And the king heard their words, and they seemed good in his sight, and he sent and called for Terah. Therefore Terah came before the king. And the king said to Terah, "I have been told that a son was born to you last night, and afterward this manner was observed in the heavens at his birth. Now therefore give me the child, so that we may slay him before his evil springs up against us. And for his value I will fill your house with silver and gold." And Terah answered the king and said to him, "My lord and king, I have heard your words, and your servant will do all that his king desires. But, my lord and king, I will tell you what happened to me last night, so that I may see what advice the king will give his servant. And then I will answer the king upon what he has just spoken." So the king said, "Speak." And Terah said to the king, "Ion, son of Mord, came to me last night, saying, 'Give to me the great and beautiful horse that the king gave you, and I will give you silver and gold and straw and provender for its value.' However, I said to him, 'Wait until I see the king concerning your words.' And behold, whatever the king says, I will do it. And now, my lord and king, behold, I have made this thing known to you, and the advice which my king will give to his servant, I will follow it." And the king heard the words of Terah, and his anger was kindled, and he considered him in the light of a fool. And the king answered Terah, and he said to him, "Are you so silly, ignorant, or deficient in understanding, to do this thing, to give your beautiful horse for silver and gold, or even for straw and provender? Are you so short of silver and gold, that you should do this thing, because you cannot obtain straw and provender to feed your horse? And what is silver and gold to you, or straw and provender, that you should give away the fine horse that I gave you, which is unlike any other on the whole earth?" Then the king left off speaking. So Terah answered the king, saying, in a similar way the king spoke unto his servant, "I beseech you, my lord and king, what is this that you have asked of me, saying, 'Give your son so that we may slay him, and I will give you silver and gold for his value'? What will I do with silver and gold after the death of my son? Who will inherit it from me? Surely, then, at my death, the silver and gold will return to my king who gave it." And when the king heard the words of Terah, and the parable which he brought concerning the king, it grieved him greatly, and he was vexed at this thing, and his anger burned within him. And Terah saw that the anger of the king was kindled against him, and he answered the king, saying, "All that I have is in the king's power. Whatever the king desires to do to his servant, let him do it. Indeed, even my son, he is in the king's power without value in exchange, he and his 2 brothers who are older than him." And the king said to Terah, "No, but I will purchase your younger son for a price." And Terah answered the king, saying, "I beseech you, my lord and king, to let your servant speak a word before you, and let the king hear the word of his servant." Then Terah said, "Let my king give me 3 days' time until I consider this matter within myself, and consult with my family concerning the words of my king." And he pressed the king greatly to agree to this. Therefore the king hearkened to Terah, and he did so, and he gave him 3 days' time. Then Terah went out from the king's presence, and he came home to his family and spoke all the words of the king Otha. And the people were greatly afraid. And it was during the 3rd day that the king sent to Terah, saying, "Send me your son for a price like I spoke to you. And if you do not do this, I will send and slay all that you have in your house, so that you will not even have a dog remaining." Therefore Terah hurried, for this thing was urgent from the king, and he took a child from one of his servants, who his handmaid had borne to him that day. Then Terah brought the child to the king and received value for him. And Yahuwah was with Terah in this matter, so that Nimrod might not cause Abram's death. Then the king took the child from Terah and dashed his head to the ground with all his might, for he thought it had been Abram. And this was concealed from him from that day, and it was forgotten by the king, like it was the will of providence not to allow the death of Abram. And Terah took Abram his son secretly, together with his mother and nurse, and he concealed them in a cave, and he brought them their provisions monthly. So Yahuwah was with Abram in the cave, and he grew up. And Abram was in the cave for 10 years. However, the king and his princes, soothsayers and sages, thought that the king had killed Abram. Chapter 9. And Haran, the son of Terah, Abram's oldest brother, took a wife in those days. Haran was 39 years old when he took her. And the wife of Haran conceived and bore a son. And he called his name Lot. Then she conceived again and bore a daughter, and she called her name Milcah. And she again conceived and bore a daughter, and she called her name Sarai. Haran was 42 years old when he begot Sarai, which was in the 10th year of the life of Abram. And during those days, Abram and his mother and nurse went out from the cave, and like the king his subjects had forgotten the affair of Abram. And when Abram came out from the cave, he went to Noah and his son Shem, and he remained with them to learn the instruction of Yahuwah and his ways. And no man knew where Abram was, and Abram served Noah and Shem his son for a long time. And Abram was in Noah's house for 39 years. And Abram knew Yahuwah from 3 years old, and he went in the ways of Yahuwah until the day of his death, like Noah and his son Shem had taught him. However, during those days, all the sons of the earth greatly transgressed against Yahuwah, and they rebelled against him, and they served other gods, and they forgot Yahuwah, who had created them in the earth. And at that time, the inhabitants of the earth made a deity for himself. Gods of wood and stone could not speak, hear, nor deliver, and the sons of men served them, and they became their gods. And the king and all his servants, and Terah with all his household were then the first of those that served gods of wood and stone. And Terah had 12 gods of large size, made of wood and stone, after the 12 months of the year. And he served each one monthly. And every month Terah would bring his meat and drink offerings to his gods. Thus Terah did every day. And the entire generation was wicked in the sight of Yahuwah. Also, every man made his very own deity, but they forsook Yahuwah who had created them. And during those days, there was not a man found in the whole earth who knew Yahuwah, for each man served his own God, except Noah and his household, and all those who were under his counsel knew Yahuwah in those days. And Abram, the son of Terah, was growing great during those days in the house of Noah. However, no man knew it, and Yahuwah was with him. And Yahuwah gave Abram an understanding heart, and he knew that all the works of that generation were nothing, and that all their gods were nothing and were not a benefit. Also, Abram saw the sun shining upon the earth, and Abram said to himself, "Now, surely this sun that shines upon the earth is God, and I will serve him." And during that day, Abram served the sun, and he prayed to him. But when evening came, the sun set as usual, and Abram said within himself, "Surely this cannot be God." So Abram still continued to speak within himself, "Who is he who made the heavens and the earth? Who created upon earth? Where is he?" And the night darkened over him, and he lifted up his eyes toward the west, north, south, and east, and he saw that the sun had vanished from the earth, and the day became dark. And Abram saw the stars and moon before him, and he said, "Surely this is the God who created the whole earth as well as man. And behold, his servants around him are gods." So Abram served the moon and prayed to it all that night. And in the morning, when it was light and the sun shone upon the earth as usual, Abram saw all the things that the Lord God had made upon earth, And Abram said to himself, Surely these are not gods that made the earth and all mankind, but these are the servants of God. Therefore Abram remained in the house of Noah, and he knew Yahuwah and his ways, and he served Yahuwah all the days of his life. However, the entire generation forgot Yahuwah and served other gods of wood and stone and rebelled all their days. And King Nimrod reigned securely, and all the earth was under his control, and all the earth had one tongue and unified words. Also, all the princes of Nimrod and his great men took counsel together, Phut, Mitzrayim, Cush, and Canaan with their families. And they said to each other, Come, let us build ourselves a city and in it a strong tower, and its top reaching the heavens, and we will make ourselves famous, so that we may reign upon the entire world, in order that the evil of our enemies may cease from us, so that we may reign mightily over them, and so that we do not become scattered over the earth on account of their wars. Therefore they all went before the king, and they told the king these words. And the king agreed with them in this affair, and he did so. And all the families assembled, consisting of about 600,000 men, and they went to seek an extensive piece of ground to build the city and the tower. And they searched in the whole earth, but they found nothing like one valley at the east of the land of Shinar, about 2 days' walk. So they journeyed there, and they dwelt there. And they began to make bricks and burn fires to build the city and the tower that they had imagined to complete. However, the building of the tower was a transgression and a sin for them. And they began to build it, and while they were building against the Lord God of the heavens, they imagined in their hearts to war against him and to ascend into the heavens. And all these people and all the families divided themselves in 3 parts. The first said, We will ascend into the heavens and fight against him. The second said, We will ascend to the heavens and place our own gods there and serve them. And the third part said, We will ascend to the heavens and smite him with bows and spears. Moreover, God knew all their works and all their evil thoughts, and he saw the city and the tower which they were building. And when they were building, they built themselves a great city and a very high and strong tower. And on account of its height, the mortar and bricks did not reach the builders in their ascension to it, until those who went up had completed a full year. And after that, they reached the builders and gave them the mortar and the bricks. Thus it was done daily. And behold, these ascended and others descended the entire day. And if a brick should fall from their hands and get broken, they would all weep over it. But if a man should fall and die, none of them would look at him. And Yahuwah knew their thoughts. And it came to pass, when they were building, they cast the arrows toward the heavens. And all the arrows fell upon them filled with blood. And when they saw them, they said to each other, Surely we have slain all those that are in the heavens. For this was from Yahuwah, in order to cause them to err, and in order to destroy them from off the face of the ground. And they built the tower and the city, and they did this thing daily until for many days and years were elapsed. And God said to the 70 angels who stood foremost before him, to those who were near to him, saying, Come, let us descend and confuse their tongues, so that one man will not understand the language of his neighbor. So they did this to them. And from that day on, each man forgot his neighbor's tongue, and they could not understand to speak in one tongue. And when the builder took lime or stone which he did not order from the hands of his neighbor, the builder would cast it away and throw it upon his neighbor, so that he would die. And they did this for many days. Therefore they killed many of them in this manner. So Yahuwah smote the 3 divisions that were there, and he punished them according to their works and design. Those who said, We will ascend to the heavens and serve our gods, became like apes and elephants. And those who said, We will smite the heavens with arrows, Yahuwah killed them, each man by the hand of his neighbor. And the 3rd division of those who said, We will ascend to the heavens and fight against him, Yahuwah scattered them throughout the earth. And those who were left amongst them, once they knew and understood the evil which had come upon them, they forsook the building. Also they became scattered upon the face of the whole earth, and they ceased building the city and the tower. Therefore he called that place Babel, for there Yahuwah confounded the language of the whole earth. Behold, it was at the east of the land of Shinar. And as for the tower which the sons of men built, the earth opened its mouth and swallowed a 3rd part of it, and a fire also descended from the heavens and burned another 3rd, and the other 3rd still remains today. And it is of that part which was aloft, and its circumference is 3 days' walk. And many of the sons of men died in that tower, a people without number. Chapter 10. And Peleg, the son of Eber, died during those days, in the 48th year of the life of Abram son of Terah. And all the days of Peleg were 239 years. And when Yahuwah had scattered the sons of men on account of their sin at the tower, behold, they spread forth into many divisions, and all the sons of men were dispersed into the 4 corners of the earth. And each of all the families became its own country, or city. And the sons of men built many cities according to their families, in all the places where they went, and throughout the earth where Yahuwah had scattered them. And some of them built cities in places from which they were uprooted later, and they called these cities after their own names, or the names of their children, or after their particular occurrences. Moreover, the sons of Japheth, the son of Noah, went and built themselves cities in the places where they were scattered, and they called all their cities after their names. And the sons of Japheth were divided upon the face of the earth into many divisions and languages. And these are the sons of Japheth according to their families: Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tiras. These are the children of Japheth according to their generations. And the children of Gomer according to their cities were the Frankim, who dwell in the land of Franza, by the river Franza, by the river Senna. And the children of Rephath are the Baronim, who dwell in the land of Beronia by the river Leda, which empties its waters in the great sea Gihon, that is, Oceanus. And the children of Togarmah are 10 families, and these are their names: Busar, Parzanak, Balgur, Elikinim, Ragbib, Tarki, Bid, Zebuk, Ongal, and Tilmaz. All these scattered and rested in the north, and built themselves cities. And they called their cities after their own names, ere those who dwell by the rivers Hithla and Idalak to this day. But the families of Angoli, Balgur, and Parzanak, they dwell by the great river Dubni. Also, the names of their cities are according to their own names. And the children of Javan are the Javanim, who dwell in the land of Macedonia. And the children of Mediair are the Orlam, who dwell in the land of Curson. And the children of Tubal are those that dwell in the land of Tuscana by the river Pishiah. And the children of Meshech are the Shibashni. And the children of Tiras are Rushash, Cushni, and Ongalis. All these went and built themselves cities. Those are the cities that are situate by the sea Jabus by the river Kira, which empties itself in the river Trajan. And the children of Elisha are the Omenim. Also, they went and built cities for themselves. Those are the cities situate between the mountains of Job and Shibathmo. And of them were the people of Lombardy, who dwell opposite the mountains of Job and Shibathmo. And they conquered the land of Italia, and remained there to this day. And the children of Chittim are the Ramim, who dwell in the valley of Canopia by the river Tibru. And the children of Dudanim are those who dwell in the cities of the sea Gihon, in the land of Bordna. These are the families of the children of Japheth according to their cities and languages, when they were scattered after the tower, and they called their cities after their names and occurrences. And these are the names of all their cities according to their families, which they built during those days, after the tower. And the children of Ham were Cush, Mitzrayim, Phut, and Canaan according to their generation and cities. All these went and built themselves cities as they found fit places for them, and they called their cities after the names of their fathers: Cush, Mitzrayim, Phut, and Canaan. And the children of Mitzrayim are the Ludim, Anamim, Lehabim, Naphtachim, Pathrusim, Casluchim, and Caphjerim, 7 families. All of these dwelt by the river Ser, which is the brook of Egypt. And they built themselves cities and called them after their own names. And the children of Pathros and Casloch intermarried together, and from them went the Pelshtim, the Azathim, and the Jerorim, the Githim, and the Ekronim, in all 5 families. Also, these built themselves cities, and they called their cities after the names of their fathers to this day. Also, the children of Canaan built themselves cities, and they called their cities after their names, 11 cities and others without number. And 4 men from the family of Ham went to the land of the plain. These are the names of the 4 men: Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim. And these men built 4 cities in the land of the plain for themselves, and they called the names of their cities after their own names. Therefore they and their children and all belonging to them dwelt in those cities, and they were fruitful and multiplied greatly and dwelt peaceably. And Ser, the son of Hur, son of Hivi, son of Canaan, went and found a valley opposite to Mount Paran. And he built a city there. So he and his 7 sons and his household dwelt there, and he called the city which he built Ser, according to his name. This is the land of Ser to this day. These are the families of the children of Ham, according to their languages and cities, when they were scattered to their countries after the tower. And some of the children of Shem, the son of Noah, who was the father of all the children of Eber, also went and built themselves cities in the places in which they were scattered, and they called their cities after their names. And the sons of Shem were Elam, Asher, Arpachshed, Lud, and Aram. And they built themselves cities and called the names of all their cities after their names. And at that time Asher, the son of Shem, and his children and his household left. They were a very large body, and they went to a distant land that they found, and they met with a very extensive valley in the land that they went to, and they built themselves 4 cities, and they called them after their own names and occurrences. And these are the names of the cities that the children of Asher built: Nineveh, Rezen, Kalach, and Rehobothar. And the children of Asher dwell there to this day. Also, the children of Aram went and built themselves a city, and they called the name of the city as after their eldest brother, and they dwell in it. This is the land of Uz to this day. And during the 2nd year after the tower, a man from the house of Asher, whose name was Bela, went with his household from the land of Nineveh to sojourn wherever he could find a place. And they came until they were opposite of the cities of the plain, towards Sodom. And they dwelt there. And the man rose up and built a small city there, and called its name Bela, after his name. That is the land of Sor to this day. And these are the families of the children of Shem according to their language and cities, after they were scattered upon the earth after the tower. And every kingdom, city, and family of the families of the children of Noah built themselves many cities after this. And they established governments in all their cities, in order to be regulated by their orders. So did all the families of the children of Noah forever. Chapter 11. And Nimrod, son of Cush, was still in the land of Shinar, and he reigned over it, and dwelt there, and he built cities in the land of Shinar. And these are the names of the 4 cities which he built. And he called their names after the occurrences that happened to them during the building of the tower. And he called the first Babel, saying, because Yahuwah confused the language of the whole earth. And the name of the second he called Erech, because God dispersed them from there. And the third he called Etched, saying there was a great battle at that place. And the fourth he called Calneh, because his princes and mighty men were consumed there. Therefore they vexed Yahuwah. He rebelled and transgressed against him. And when Nimrod had built these cities in the land of Shinar, he placed his remaining people, the princes and mighty men who were left from his kingdom, in them. Moreover, Nimrod dwelt in Babel, and there he renewed his reign over the rest of his subjects, and he reigned securely. Therefore the subjects and princes of Nimrod called his name Amraphel, saying that at the tower his princes and men fell because of him. Despite this, Nimrod did not return to Yahuwah. Therefore he continued in wickedness and teaching wickedness to the sons of men. And Mardon, his son, was worse than his father, and continued to add to the abominations of his father. And he caused the sons of men to sin. Therefore it is said, from the wicked goes wickedness. At that time there was war between the families of the children of Ham, as they dwelt in the cities that they had built. And Chedorlaomer, king of Elam, went away from the families of the children of Ham. Also he fought with them, and he subdued them. And he went to the 5 cities of the plain, and he fought against them, and he subdued them. Therefore they were under his control. Moreover, they served him for 12 years, and they gave him a yearly tax. During that time, Nahor, the son of Serug, died in the 49th year of the life of Abram son of Terah. And in the 50th year of the life of Abram son of Terah, Abram came forth from the house of Noah, and went to his father's house. And Abram knew Yahuwah. Also he went in his ways and instructions. And Yahuwah his God was with him. And during those days, Terah his father was still a captain of the army of King Nimrod, and he still followed foreign gods. Furthermore, Abram came to his father's house and saw the 12 gods standing there in their temples. And the anger of Abram was kindled when he saw these images in his father's house. And Abram said, as Yahuwah lives, these images will not remain in my father's house. So will Yahuwah, who created me, do to me, if I do not break them all within 3 days' time. So Abram went from them, and his anger burned within him. Furthermore, Abram hurried and went from the chamber to his father's outer court, and he found his father sitting in the court, and all his servants with him. So Abram came and sat before him. And Abram asked his father, saying, Father, tell me, where is the God who created the heavens and earth and all the sons of men upon earth? Also, who created you and me? Therefore Terah answered his son Abram and said, Behold, those who created us are all here with us in the house. Then Abram said to his father, My lord, show them to me, I pray you. So Terah brought Abram into the chamber of the inner court, and Abram saw. And behold, the whole room was full of gods of wood and stone, 12 great images. Also there were countless smaller ones. And Terah said to his son, Behold, these are those who made everything that you see upon earth. And they are those who created me, and you, and all mankind. Then Terah bowed down to his gods, and then he went away from them. Also Abram, his son, went away with him. And when Abram had gone from them, he went to his mother and sat before her. And he said to his mother, Behold, my father has shown me those who made the heavens and earth, and all the sons of men. Thou therefore hasten and fetch a kid from the flock, and make it into savory meat, so that I may bring it to my father's gods as an offering for them to eat. Perhaps by this I will become acceptable to them. Therefore his mother did so, and she fetched a kid, and made it into savory meat, and brought it to Abram. Then Abram took the savory meat from his mother and brought it before the gods of his father, and he drew near to them, so that they might eat. However, Terah his father did not know of it. And on the day that he was sitting amongst them, Abram saw that they had no voice, no hearing, no motion, and not one of them could stretch forth his hand to eat. And Abram mocked them, and said, Surely the savory meat that I prepared has not pleased them, or perhaps it was too little for them, and it is for that reason that do they not eat. Therefore tomorrow I will prepare fresh savory meat, better and more plentiful than this, so that I may see what happens. And it was on the next day that Abram directed his mother concerning the savory meat, and his mother rose and fetched 3 fine kids from the flock. And of them she made some excellent savory meat, such as her son was fond of, and she gave it to her son Abram. However, Terah his father did not know about it. And Abram took the savory meat from his mother, and brought it before his father's gods into the chamber. And he came near to them so that they might eat, and he placed it before them, and Abram sat before them all day, thinking perhaps they might eat. And Abram viewed them, and behold, they had neither voice nor hearing, nor did one of them stretch forth his hand to the meat to eat. And in the evening of that day in that house, Abram was clothed with the Spirit of God. And he called out and said, Woe to my father in this wicked generation, whose hearts are all inclined to vanity, who serve these idols of wood and stone, which can neither eat, smell, hear, nor speak, who have mouths without speech, eyes without sight, ears without hearing, hands without feeling, and legs without movement. They are like those who have made them and have that trusted in them. And when Abram saw all these things, his anger was kindled against his father. Therefore he hurried and took a hatchet in his hand, and came to the chamber of the gods, and he broke all his father's gods. And when he was done breaking the images, he placed the hatchet into the hand of the great deity which was there before them. Then he went out. Also Terah his father came home, for he had heard the sound of the striking of the hatchet at the door. So Terah came into the house to know what had happened. And having heard the noise of the hatchet in the room of images, Terah ran to the room of images. And he met Abram going out. And Terah entered the room, and found all the idols fallen down and broken. Also the hatchet was in the hand of the largest, which was not broke. And the savory meat which Abram his son had made was still before them. And when Terah saw this, his anger was greatly kindled. Then he hurried and went from the room to Abram. And he found Abram, his son, still sitting in the house. And he said to him, What is this work you have done to my gods? And Abram answered Terah his father, and he said, Not so, my lord, for I brought savory meat before them. And when I came near to them with the meat so that they might eat, all at once they stretched forth their hands to eat before the great one had put forth his hand to eat. And the large one saw their works that they did before him, and his anger was violently kindled against them. So he went and took the hatchet that was in the house, and came to them, and broke them all. And behold, like you can see, the hatchet is still in his hand. And when he spoke then, Terah's anger was kindled against his son Abram. Therefore in his anger Terah said to Abram his son, What is this tale that you have told? You are telling lies to me. Is there a spirit, soul, or power in these gods to do all you have told me? Are they not wood and stone, and have I not made them myself? How can you speak such lies, saying that the large deity that was with them smote them? It was you who placed the hatchet in his hands, and yet you say that he smote them all. Therefore Abram answered his father and said to him, So, then, how can you serve these idols in whom there is no power to do anything? Can those idols in which you trust deliver you? Can they hear your prayers when you call upon them? Can they deliver you from the hands of your enemies? Or they will fight your battles for you against your enemies, so that you should serve wood and stone which cannot speak nor hear. And now, surely it is not good for you nor for the sons of men who are connected with you to do these things. Are you so silly, so foolish, or so short of understanding that you will serve wood and stone, and do according to this manner? Yet forget the Lord God who made heavens and earth, and who created you in the earth. And because of it, you bring a great evil upon your souls in this matter by serving stone and wood. During ancient times, our fathers sinned in this same. Therefore, the Lord God of the universe brought the waters of a flood upon them and destroyed the whole earth. And how can you continue to do this and serve gods of wood and stone who cannot hear or speak or deliver you from oppression, by which bring the anger of the God of the universe down upon you? Now therefore, my father, refrain from this, and do not bring evil upon your soul and the souls of your household. Then Abram hurried and sprang from before his father, and took the hatchet from his father's largest idol, with which Abram broke it, and ran away. Seeing all that Abram had done, Terah hurried to go from his house. And he went to the king, and he came before Nimrod and stood before him. And he bowed down to the king. And the king said, What do you want? And he said, I beseech you, my lord, to hear me. Now 50 years back, a child was born to me. And he has done this to my gods, and he has spoken that. Now therefore, my lord and king, send for him so that he may come before you, and judge him according to the law, so that we may be delivered from his evil. And the king sent 3 men of his servants. Therefore they went and brought Abram before the king. Then Nimrod and all his princes and servants were sitting before him that day. Also Terah sat before them. And the king said to Abram, "What is this that you have done to your father and to his gods?" Therefore Abram answered the king with the words that he spoke to his father, and he said, "The large deity that was with them in the house did what you have heard to them." And the king said to Abram, "Do they have power to speak, and eat, and do like you have said?" And Abram answered the king, saying, "And if there be no power in them, why do you serve them and cause the sons of men to err by your follies? Do you imagine that they can deliver you or do anything small or great, such that you should serve them? And why do you not sense the God of the whole universe, who created you, and who has the power to kill and keep alive? O foolish, simple, and ignorant king, woe to you forever! I thought you would teach your servants the upright way, but you have not done this. Instead, you have filled the whole earth with your sins, and the sins of your people who have followed your ways. Do you not know, or have you not heard, that this evil which you do, our ancestors sinned by it in days of old? And the eternal God brought the waters of the flood upon them and destroyed them all. Also, they destroyed the whole earth on their account. Now will you and your people rise up and do like this work, in order to bring down the anger of the Lord God of the universe, and to bring evil upon you and the whole earth. Now therefore put away this evil deed that you do, and serve the God of the universe, for your soul is in his hands. And then it will be well with you. However, if your wicked heart will not hearken to my words to cause you to forsake your evil ways, and to serve the eternal God, then you will die in shame during the latter days, you, your people, and all who are connected with you, hearing your words or walking in your evil ways." And when Abram had ceased speaking before the king and princes, Abram lifted up his eyes to the heavens, and he said, "The Lord sees all the wicked, and he will judge them." Chapter 12. And when the king heard the words of Abram, he ordered him to be put into prison. And Abram was in prison for 10 days in prison. And at the end of those days, the king ordered that all the kings, princes, and governors of different provinces and the sages should come before him, and they sat before him, and Abram was still in the house of confinement. And the king said to the princes and sages, "Have you heard what Abram, the son of Terah, has done to his father? He has done this to him, and I ordered him to be brought before me. And he has spoken that his heart did not misgive him, nor did no presence trouble him. And behold, now he is confined in the prison. Therefore decide what judgment is due to this man who reviled the king, who spoke and did all the things that you heard." And they all answered the king, saying, "The man who reviles the king should be hanged upon a tree. That having done all the things that he said, and having despised our gods, he should be burned to death. For this is the law in this matter. If it please the king to do this, let him order his servants to kindle a fire both night and day in your brick furnace, and then we will cast this man into it." And the king did so. And he commanded his servants that they should prepare a fire for 3 days and 3 nights in the king's furnace that is in Casdim. Therefore the king ordered them to take Abram from prison and bring him out to be burned. And all the king's servants, princes, lords, governors, and judges, and all the inhabitants of the land, about 900,000 men, stood opposite the furnace to see Abram. And all the women and little ones crowded upon the roofs and towers to see what was doing with Abram, and they all stood together at a distance. And there was not a man left that did not come on that day to behold the scene. And when Abram came, the conjurers and the sages of the king saw Abram. And they cried out to the king, saying, "Our sovereign lord, surely this is the man whom we know to have been the child at whose birth the great star swallowed the 4 stars, which we declared to the king now 50 years ago. And behold, now even his father has transgressed your commands, and mocked you by bringing you another child, which you killed." And when the king heard their words, he was very wroth, and he ordered Terah to be brought before him. And the king said, "Have you heard what the conjurers have spoken? Now tell me truthfully, what did you do? And if you should speak truthfully, you should be acquitted." And seeing that the king's anger was greatly kindled, Terah said to the king, "My lord and king, you have heard the truth, and what the sages have spoken is right." So the king asked, "How could you do such a thing, to transgress my orders and to give me a child that you did not beget, and to take value for him?" And Terah answered the king, "Because at that time my tender feelings were excited for my son. Therefore, and I took a son from my handmaid, and I brought him to the king." And the king said, "Who advised you to this? Tell me, do not hide anything from me, and then you will not die." Then Terah was greatly terrified in the king's presence, and he said to the king, "It was Haran my eldest son who advised me to do this." And during those days that Abram was born, Haran was 32 years old. However, Haran did not advise his father to anything, for Terah said this to the king in order to deliver his soul from the king, for he feared greatly. And the king said to Terah, "Haran your son who advised you to this will die through fire with Abram." for the sentence of death is upon him for having rebelled against the king's desire in doing this thing. And at that time Haran felt inclined to follow the ways of Abram, but he kept it within himself. And Haran said in his heart, Behold, now the king has seized Abram on account of the things that Abram did. And it will come to pass, that if Abram prevails over the king I will follow him, but if the king prevails, I will go after the king. And when Terah had spoken this to the king concerning Haran his son, the king ordered Haran to be seized with Abram. And they brought them both, Abram and Haran his brother, to cast them into the fire, and all the inhabitants of the land, and the king's servants, and princes, and all the women and little ones were there, standing that day over them. And the king's servants took Abram and his brother, and they stripped them of all their clothes excepting their lower garments which were upon them. And they bound their hands and feet with linen cords, and the servants of the king lifted them up and cast them both into the furnace. And Yahuwah loved Abram, and he had compassion over him. Therefore Yahuwah came down and delivered Abram from the fire. And he was not burned, but all the cords with which they bound him were burned, while Abram remained and walked around in the fire. However, Haran died when they had cast him into the fire, and he was burned to ashes, for his heart was not perfect with Yahuwah. And those men who cast him into the fire, the flame of the fire spread over them, and they were burned, and 12 men of them died. And Abram walked in the midst of the fire for 3 days and 3 nights, and all the servants of the king saw him walking in the fire. Therefore they came and told the king, saying, Behold, we have seen Abram walking around in the midst of the fire, and even the lower garments which are upon him are not burned, but the cord with which he was bound was burned. And when the king heard their words, his heart fainted, and he would not believe them. So he sent other faithful princes to see this matter, and they went and saw it and told it to the king. And the king rose to go and see it. And he saw Abram walking to and fro in the midst of the fire, and he saw Haran's body burned. And the king wondered greatly. And the king ordered Abram to be taken out from the fire. And his servants approached to take him out, but they could not, for the fire was round about. Also the flame from the furnace ascended toward them. And the king's servants fled from it. And the king rebuked them, saying, Make haste and bring Abram out of the fire, so that you will not die. Again the servants of the king approached to bring Abram out. However, the flames came upon them and burned their faces, so that 8 of them died. And when the king saw that his servants could not approach the fire, or else they should be burned, the king called to Abram, O servant of the God who is in the heavens, go from amidst the fire, and come here before me. And Abram hearkened to the voice of the king, and he went from the fire, and came, and stood before the king. And when Abram came out, the king and all his servants saw Abram coming before the king, with his lower garments upon him, for they were not burned, only the cord with which he was bound was burned. And the king said to Abram, How is it that you were not burned in the fire? And Abram said to the king, The God of the heavens and earth, in whom I trust and who has all in his power, he delivered me from the fire into which you did cast me. Therefore Haran the brother of Abram was burned to ashes, and they searched for his body, and they found it consumed. And Haran was 82 years old when he died in the fire of Casdim. Then, seeing that Abram was delivered from the fire, the king, princes, and inhabitants of the land came and bowed down to Abram. And Abram said to them, Do not bow down to me, but bow down to the God of the world who made you, and serve him, and go in his ways, for it is he who delivered me from out of this fire. And it is he who created the souls and spirits of all men, and formed man in his mother's womb, and brought him forth into the world. And it is he who will deliver those who trust in him from all pain. And this thing seemed very wonderful in the eyes of the king and princes, that Abram was saved from the fire, and that Haran was burnt. And the king gave Abram many presents, and he gave him his 2 head servants from the king's house. The name of one was Oni, and the name of the other was Eliezer. And all the kings, princes, and servants gave Abram many gifts of silver, and gold, and pearl. Then the king and his princes sent him away, and he went in peace. And Abram went from the king in peace, and many of the king's servants followed him, and about 300 men joined him. And on that day Abram returned and went to his father's house, he and the men who followed him. And Abram served Yahuwah his God all the days of his life, and he walked in his ways and followed his law. And from that day forward Abram inclined the hearts of the sons of men to serve Yahuwah. And at that time Nahor and Abram took wives to themselves, the daughters of their brother Haran. The wife of Nahor was Milcah, and the name of Abram's wife was Sarai. Moreover, Sarai, the wife of Abram, was barren. She had no offspring in those days. And at the expiration of 2 years from Abram's going out of the fire, which is during the 52nd year of his life, behold, King Nimrod sat in Babel upon the throne. Then the king fell asleep and dreamed that he was standing with his troops and armies in a valley opposite the king's furnace. And he lifted up his eyes and saw a man in the likeness of Abram coming forth from the furnace, and that he came and stood before the king with his drawn sword, and then sprang to the king with his sword, when the king fled from the man, for he was afraid. And while he was running, the man threw an egg upon the king's head, and the egg became a great river. Then the king dreamed that all his troops sank in that river and died, but the king took flight with 3 men who were before him, and he escaped. Then the king looked at these men, and they were clothed in princely dresses, like the garments of kings, and had the appearance and majesty of kings. And while they were running, the river turned into an egg before the king. And a young bird came out of the egg that came before the king, and flew at his head and plucked out the king's eye. And the king was grieved at the sight, and he woke up out of his sleep, and his spirit was agitated, and he felt a great terror. And in the morning the king rose from his couch with fear, and he ordered all the wise men and magicians to come before him, when the king related his dream to them. And a wise servant of the king, whose name was Anuki, answered the king, saying, This is nothing else but the evil of Abram and his seed, which will spring up against my lord and king in the latter days. And behold, the day will come when Abram and his seed and the children of his household will war with my king, and they will smite all the king's hosts and his troops. And as to what you have said concerning the 3 men, who you saw like yourself, and who escaped, this means that only you will escape with 3 kings from the kings of the earth who will be with you in battle. And what you saw of the river, which turned to an egg like at first, and the young bird plucking out your eye, this means nothing other than the seed of Abram will slay the king in latter days. This is my king's dream, and this is its interpretation, and the dream is true, and the interpretation which your servant has given you is right. Now therefore, my king, surely you know that it is now 52 years since your sages saw this during the birth of Abram. And if my king will suffer Abram to live in the earth, it will be for the injury of my lord and king. For all the days that Abram lived, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. For this was known previously during his birth. However, why will my king not slay him, so that his evil may be kept from you in the latter days? Therefore Nimrod hearkened to the voice of Anuki, and he sent some of his servants to go and secretly seize Abram, and bring him before the king to suffer death. And at that time Eliezer, the servant whom the king had given Abram, was in the presence of the king. And he heard what Anuki had advised the king, and what the king had said to cause Abram's death. Therefore Eliezer said to Abram, Hurry, rise up and save your soul, so that you may not die by the hands of the king, for he saw this in a dream concerning you, and this is how Anuki interpreted it. Also, this is how Anuki advised the king concerning you. So Abram hearkened to the voice of Eliezer, and Abram hurried and ran for safety to the house of Noah and his son Shem, and he concealed himself there and found a place of safety. And the king's servants came to Abram's house to seek him, but they could not find him, and they searched throughout the country, and he was not to be found. So they went and searched in every direction, yet he was nowhere to be met. And when the king's servants could not find Abram, they returned to the king. But the king's anger against Abram was stilled, like they did not find him, and the king drove this matter concerning Abram from his mind. And Abram was concealed in Noah's house for 1 month, until the king had forgotten this matter. But Abram was still afraid of the king. Furthermore, terror came secretly to see Abram his son in the house of Noah, and terror was very great in the eyes of the king. And Abram said to his father, Do you not know that the king wishes to slay me, and to annihilate my name from the earth by the advice of his wicked counselors? Now who do you have here? And what do you have in this land? Rise, let us go together to the land of Canaan, so that we may be delivered from his hand, or else you will perish by him in the latter days. Do you not know, or have you not heard, that it is not through love that Nimrod giveth you all this honor, but it is only for his benefit that he bestows all this goodness upon you? And if he does greater good than this for you, surely these are only vanities of the world. For wealth and riches cannot help you during the day of wrath and anger. Now therefore, hearken to my voice, and let us arise and go to the land of Canaan, out of the reach of injury from Nimrod. Also, serve Yahuwah who created you in the earth, and it will be well with you, and cast away all the vain things which you pursue. When Abram stopped speaking, Noah and his son Shem answered Terah, saying, The word that Abram said to you is true. And Terah hearkened to the voice of his son Abram, and Terah did all that Abram said, for this was from Yahuwah, that the king should not cause Abram's death. Chapter 13. And Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, the son of Haran, and Sarah his daughter-in-law, the wife of his son Abram, and all the souls of his household, and went with them from Ur Kasdim to go to the land of Canaan. And when they came as far as the land of Haran, they remained there, for it was exceedingly good land for pasture, and of sufficient extent for those who accompanied them. And the people of the land of Haran saw that Abram was good and upright with God and men, and that Yahuwah his God was with him. So some of the people of the land of Haran came and joined Abram, and he taught them the instruction of Yahuwah and his ways. And these men remained with Abram in his house, and they stuck with him. And Abram remained in the land for 3 years. And at the expiration of 3 years Yahuwah appeared to Abram and said to him, I am Yahuwah who brought you forth from Ur Kasdim, and delivered you from the hands of all your enemies. Now therefore, if you will hearken to my voice and keep my commandments, my statutes and my laws, then I cause your enemies to fall before you, and I will multiply your seed like the stars of the heavens, and I will send my blessing upon all the works of your hands, and you will lack nothing. Now arise, take your wife and all belonging to you, and go to the land of Canaan, and remain there, and I will be to you for a God, and I will bless you. Therefore Abram rose and took his wife and all his belongings, and he went to the land of Canaan as Yahuwah had told him. And Abram was 50 years old when he went from Haran. And Abram came to the land of Canaan and dwelt in the midst of the city, and there he pitched his tent amongst the children of Canaan, inhabitants of the land. And Yahuwah appeared to Abram when he came to the land of Canaan, and said to him, This is the land which I gave to you and to your seed after you forever, and I will make your seed like the stars of the heavens, and I will give to your seed for an inheritance all the lands which you see. And Abram built an altar in the place where God had spoken to him, and Abram there called upon the name of Yahuwah. At that time, at the end of 3 years of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, in that year Noah died, which was the 58th year of the life of Abram. And all the days that Noah lived were 950 years, thus he died. And Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, he, his wife, and all belonging to him, and all those that accompanied him, together with those that joined him from the people of the land. But Nahor, Abram's brother, and Terah his father, and Lot the son of Haran, and all belonging to them dwelt in Haran. In the 5th year of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, the people of Sodom and Gomorrah and all the cities of the plain revolted from the power of Chedorlaomer, king of Elam. For all the kings of the cities of the plain had served Chedorlaomer for 12 years, and given him a yearly tax, but during those days, in the 13th year, they rebelled against him. And in the 10th year of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan there was war between Nimrod king of Shinar, and Chedorlaomer king of Elam, and Nimrod came to fight with Chedorlaomer, and to subdue him. For Chedorlaomer was at that time one of the princes of the hosts of Nimrod. And when all the people at the tower were dispersed, and those that remained were also scattered upon the face of the earth, Chedorlaomer went to the land of Elam and reigned over it, and rebelled against his lord. And during those days, when Nimrod saw that the cities of the plain had rebelled, he came with pride and anger to war with Chedorlaomer, and Nimrod assembled all his princes and subjects, about 700,000 men, and went against Chedorlaomer. And Chedorlaomer went out to meet him with 5,000 men, and they prepared for battle in the valley of Babel, which is between Elam and Shinar. And all those kings fought there, and Nimrod and his people were smitten before the people of Chedorlaomer. And there fell from Nimrod's men about 600,000, and Mardon the king's son fell amongst them. And Nimrod fled and returned in shame and disgrace to his land, and he was under subjection to Chedorlaomer for a long time. And Chedorlaomer returned to his land, and sent princes of his host to the kings that dwelt around him, to Arioch king of Elasar, and to Tidal king of Goyim, and made a covenant with them, and they were all obedient to his commands. And it was in the 15th year of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, which is the 70th year of the life of Abram. And Yahuwah appeared to Abram in that year, and he said to him, I am Yahuwah who brought you out from Ur Kasdim to give you this land for an inheritance. Now therefore walk before me and be perfect and keep my commands, for to you and to your seed I will give this land for an inheritance, from the river Mitzrayim to the great river Euphrates. And you should come to your fathers in peace and in good age, and the 4th generation will return here in this land and will inherit it forever. And Abram built an altar, and he called upon the name of Yahuwah who appeared to him, and he brought up sacrifices upon the altar to Yahuwah. At that time Abram returned and went to Haran to see his father and mother and his father's household. So Abram and his wife and all belonging to him returned to Haran, and Abram dwelt in Haran for 5 years. And many of the people of Haran, about 72 men, followed Abram, and Abram taught them the instruction of Yahuwah and his ways, and he taught them to know Yahuwah. In those days Yahuwah appeared to Abram in Haran, and he said to him, Behold, I spoke to you these 20 years back, saying, Go forth from your land, from your birthplace, and from your father's house, to the land that I have shown you to give it to you and to your children, for I will bless you there in that land, and make you a great nation, and make your name great. and by you the families of the earth will be blessed. Now therefore arise, go from this place, you, your wife, and all belonging to you, also every one born in your house and all the souls you have made in Haran, and bring them out with you from here, and rise to return to the land of Canaan. Therefore Abram arose and took his wife Sarai and all belonging to him and all that were born to him in his house, and the souls which they had made in Haran, and they came out to go to the land of Canaan. And Abram went and returned to the land of Canaan, according to the word of Yahuwah. And Lot the son of his brother Haran went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he went from Haran to return to the land of Canaan. And he came to the land of Canaan according to the word of Yahuwah to Abram, and he pitched his tent. And he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, and with him was Lot his brother's son, and all belonging to him. And Yahuwah again appeared to Abram and said, To your seed will I give this land. Therefore he there built an altar to Yahuwah who appeared to him, which is still to today in the plains of Mamre. Chapter 14. In those days there was a wise man who had understanding in all wisdom, and of a beautiful appearance, but he was poor and indigent in the land of Shinar. His name was Rikayan, and he was hard set to support himself. And he resolved to go to Egypt, to Osiris, the son of Anon king of Egypt, to show the king his wisdom, for perhaps he might find grace in his sight, to raise him up and give him maintenance. And Rikayan did so. And when Rikayan came to Egypt, he asked the inhabitants of Egypt concerning the king, and the inhabitants of Egypt told him the custom of the king of Egypt. For it was, then, the custom of the king of Egypt that he went from his royal palace, and was seen abroad only one day in the year, and after that the king would return to his palace to remain there. And on the day when the king went, he passed judgment in the land. And every one having a suit came before the king that day to obtain his request. Moreover, when Rikayan heard of the custom in Egypt, and he could not come into the presence of the king, he grieved greatly, and was very sorrowful. And in the evening Rikayan went out and found a house in ruins, previously a bakehouse in Egypt. So he abode there all night in bitterness of soul and pinched with hunger. Also sleep was removed from his eyes. And Rikayan considered within himself what he should do in the town until the king made his appearance, and how he might maintain himself there. And he rose in the morning and walked about, and met in his way those who sold vegetables and various sorts of seed with which they supplied the inhabitants. And Rikayan wished to do the same in order to get a maintenance in the city, but he was unacquainted with the custom of the people, and he was like a blind man among them. Therefore he went and obtained vegetables to sell them for his support. Also a riot assembled about him, and ridiculed him, and took his vegetables from him, and left him with nothing. And he rose up from there in bitterness of soul, and went sighing to the bakehouse where he stayed the night before, and he slept there the second night. Again, on that night, he reasoned within himself how he could save himself from starvation, and he devised a scheme how to act. Therefore he rose up in the morning and acted ingeniously. Then he went and hired 30 strong men of the riot, carrying their war instruments in their hands. Next he led them to the top of the Egyptian sepulchre, and he placed them there. And he commanded them, saying, Thus saith the king, Strengthen yourselves, and be valiant men, and do not let any man be buried here until 2 pieces of silver are given, and then he may be buried. And so those men did according to the order of Rikayan towards the people of Egypt the entire year. And in 8 months' time Rikayan and his men gathered great riches of silver and gold. Also Rikayan took a great quantity of horses and other animals, and he hired more men. So too he gave them horses, and they remained with him. And when the year came round, at the time the king went into the town, all the inhabitants of Egypt assembled together to speak to him concerning the work of Rikayan and his men. Therefore the king went on the appointed day. Then all the Egyptians came before him and cried to him, saying, May the king live forever. What is this thing you do in the town to your servants, not to suffer a dead body to be buried until so much silver and gold is given? Was there ever anything like this done in the whole earth, from the days of former kings, even from the days of Adam until today, such that the dead should not be buried, except for a set price? We know it to be the custom of kings to take a yearly tax from the living, but you do not only do this, but you take taxes from the dead day by day. Now, O king, we cannot bear this any more, for the whole city is ruined on account of this, or do you not know it? And when the king heard all that they had spoken, he was very wroth, and his anger burned within him at this affair, for he had known nothing of it. And the king said, Who and where is he that dares to do this wicked thing in my land without my command? Surely you will tell me. And they told him all the works of Rikayan and his men, and the king's anger was aroused, and he ordered Rikayan and his men to be brought before him. Therefore Rikayan took about 1,000 children, sons and daughters. Then he clothed them in silk and embroidery. Also he set them upon horses and sent them to the king by means of his men. Furthermore, he took a great quantity of silver and gold and precious stones, also a strong and beautiful horse, like a present for the king, by which he came before the king and bowed down to the earth before him. Moreover, the king, his servants, and all the inhabitants of Egypt wondered at the work of Rican. Also, they saw his riches and the present that he had brought to the king. So, it greatly pleased the king and he wondered at it. And when Rican sat before him, the king asked him concerning all his works, and Rican spoke all his words wisely before the king, his servants, and all the inhabitants of Egypt. And when the king heard the words of Rican and his wisdom, Rican found grace in his sight, and he met with grace and kindness from all the servants of the king and from all the inhabitants of Egypt, on account of his wisdom and excellent speeches, and from that time they loved him exceedingly. And the king answered and said to Rican, Your name will no longer be called Rican, but Pharaoh will be your name, since you have taken a tax from the dead. So he called his name Pharaoh. And the king and his subjects loved Rican for his wisdom, and they consulted with all the inhabitants of Egypt to make him prefect under the king. And all the inhabitants of Egypt and its wise men did so, and it was made a law in Egypt. And they made Rican Pharaoh prefect under Osiris king of Egypt, and Rican the Pharaoh governed over Egypt, daily administering justice to the whole city. But Osiris the king would judge the people of the land one day in the year, when he went out to make his appearance. And Rican the Pharaoh cunningly usurped the government of Egypt, and he took a tax from all the inhabitants of Egypt. And all the inhabitants of Egypt greatly loved Rican Pharaoh, and they made a decree to call every king that should reign over them, and their seed in Egypt, Pharaoh. Therefore, all the kings that reigned in Egypt from that time forward were called Pharaoh to this day. Chapter 15. And in that year there was a heavy famine throughout the land of Canaan, and the inhabitants of the land could not remain on account of the famine, for it was very grievous. Therefore Abram and all belonging to him rose, and they went down to Egypt on account of the famine. And when they were at the brook Mitzrayim, they remained there for some time to rest from the fatigue of the road. Then Abram and Sarai were walking at the border of the brook Mitzrayim. Then Abram beheld his wife, Sarai, that she was very beautiful. And Abram said to his wife Sarai, Since God has created you with such a beautiful countenance, I am afraid of the Egyptians, lest they should slay me and take you away, for the fear of God is not in these places. Surely, then, you should do this, say you are my sister to all who may ask you, in order that it may be well with me, also, so that we may live and not be put to death. And Abram commanded the same to all those who came with him to Egypt on account of the famine. Also, he commanded his nephew Lot, saying, If the Egyptians ask you concerning Sarai, say she is the sister of Abram. And yet, with all these orders Abram did not put confidence in them, but he took Sarai and placed her in a chest and concealed it amongst their vessels. For Abram was greatly concerned about Sarai on account of the wickedness of the Egyptians. And Abram and all belonging to him rose up from the brook Mitzrayim, and they came to Egypt. And they had scarcely entered the gates of the city when the guard stood up to them, saying, Give tithe to the king from what you have, and then you may come into the town. So Abram and those who were with him did so. And Abram, with the people that were with him, came to Egypt. And when they came, they brought the chest in which Sarai was concealed, and the Egyptians saw the chest. And the king's servants approached Abram, saying, What have you here in this chest which we have not seen? Now open the chest and give tithe to the king of all that it contains. And Abram said, I will not open this chest. However, I will give all you whatever demand upon it. And Pharaoh's officers answered Abram, saying, It is a chest of precious stones. Give us 1/10 of it. Abram said, All that you desire I will give, but you must not open the chest. And the king's officers pressed Abram, and they reached the chest and opened it with force, and they saw, and behold, a beautiful woman was in the chest. And when the officers of the king beheld Sarai, they were struck with admiration at her beauty, and all the princes and servants of Pharaoh assembled to see Sarai, for she was very beautiful. Then the king's officers ran and told Pharaoh all that they had seen, and they praised Sarai to the king. And Pharaoh ordered her to be brought, and the woman came before the king. Furthermore, Pharaoh beheld Sarai, and she pleased him exceedingly, and he was struck with her beauty, and the king rejoiced greatly on her account, and made presents to those who brought him the tidings concerning her. Then the woman was brought to Pharaoh's house. However, Abram grieved on account of his wife, and he prayed to Yahuwah to deliver her from the hands of Pharaoh. Also, Sarai prayed at that time, and said, O Lord God, you told my lord Abram to go from his land and from his father's house to the land of Canaan. Also, you promised to do well with him if he would perform your commands. Now, behold, we have done what you commanded us. We left our land and our families. Also, we went to a strange land and to a people whom we have not known before. And we came to this land to avoid the famine. But this evil accident has befallen me. Now therefore, O Lord God, deliver us and save us from the hand of this oppressor. Also, do well with me for the sake of your mercy. Therefore Yahuwah hearkened to the voice of Sarai, and Yahuwah sent an angel to deliver Sarai from the power of Pharaoh. Then the king came and sat before Sarai, and, behold, an angel of Yahuwah was standing over them. Moreover, he appeared to Sarai and said to her, Do not fear, for Yahuwah has heard your prayer. And the king approached Sarai and said to her, What is that man to you, who brought you here? And she said, He is my brother. And the king said, It is incumbent upon us to make him great, to elevate him and to do all the good that you command us for him. And at that time the king sent to Abram silver and gold and precious stones in abundance, together with cattle, men servants and maid servants. And the king ordered Abram to be brought, and he sat in the court of the king's house. And the king greatly exalted Abram on that night. And the king approached to speak to Sarai, and he reached out his hand to touch her. Then the angel smote him heavily, and he was terrified, and he refrained from reaching to her. And when the king came near to Sarai, the angel struck him to the ground. And he acted this way to him the whole night. And the king was terrified. Then, on that night, the angel struck all the servants of the king heavily, including his whole household, on account of Sarai. And there was a great lamentation that night amongst the people of Pharaoh's house. And seeing the evil that befell him, he said, Surely, on account of this woman has this thing happened to me. So he removed himself at some distance from her and spoke pleasing words to her. And the king said to Sarai, Tell me, I pray you, concerning the man with whom you came here. Therefore Sarai said, This man is my husband. And I said to you that he was my brother, for I was afraid, lest you should put him to death through wickedness. Therefore the king kept away from Sarai. Then the plagues of the angel of Yahuwah ceased from him and his household. And Pharaoh knew that he was smitten on account of Sarai, and the king was greatly astonished by this. Then in the morning the king called for Abram and said to him, What is this you have done to me? Why did you say, She is my sister, by which I took her as a wife for myself? Therefore now this heavy plague has come upon me and my household. Now therefore here is your wife, take her and go from our land, lest we all die on her account. Therefore Pharaoh took more cattle, men servants, and maid servants, and silver and gold to give to Abram. Then he returned Sarai, his wife, to him. Furthermore, the king took a maiden whom he begot by his concubines, and he gave her to Sarai for a handmaid. Then the king said to his daughter, It is better for you, my daughter, to be a handmaid in this man's house than to be mistress in my house, after we have beheld the evil that befell us on account of this woman. Furthermore, Abram arose, and he and all belonging to him went away from Egypt. And Pharaoh ordered some of his men to accompany him, and everyone who went with him. And Abram returned to the land of Canaan, to the place where he had made the altar, where he had pitched his tent in the beginning. Moreover, Lot, the son of Haran, Abram's brother, had a heavy stock of cattle, flocks, and herds, and tents. For Yahuwah was bountiful to them on account of Abram. And when Abram was dwelling in the land, the herdsmen of Lot quarreled with the herdsmen of Abram, for their property was too great for them to remain together in the land, and the land could not bear them on account of their cattle. And when Abram's herdsmen went to feed their flock, they would not go into the fields of the people of the land, but the cattle of Lot's herdsmen did otherwise, for they were allowed them to feed in the fields of the people of the land. And the people of the land saw this occurrence daily, so they came to Abram and quarreled with him on account of Lot's herdsmen. And Abram said to Lot, What is this you are doing to me, to make me despicable to the inhabitants of the land, that you ordered your herdsmen to feed your cattle in the fields of other people? Do you not know that I am a stranger in this land amongst the children of Canaan? And why will you do this to me? Therefore Abram quarreled daily with Lot on account of this. But Lot would not listen to Abram, and he continued to do the same. Therefore the inhabitants of the land came and told Abram. So Abram said to Lot, How long will you be a stumbling block for me with the inhabitants of the land? Now I beseech you, let there be no more quarreling between us, for we are kinsmen. But, I pray you, separate from me. Go and choose a place where you may dwell with your cattle along with all belonging to you. Be that keep yourself at a distance from me, you and your household. And do not be afraid in going from me, for if any one injures you, let me know, and I will avenge your cause from him. Only remove yourself from me. And when Abram had spoken all these words to Lot, then Lot arose and lifted up his eyes toward the plain of Jordan. And he saw that the whole of this place was well watered, and good for man as well as affording pasture for the cattle. Therefore Lot went from Abram to that place. Furthermore, he there pitched his tent, and he dwelt in Sodom, and they were separated from each other. And Abram dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and he pitched his tent there. And Abram remained in that place many years. Chapter 16. At that time, Chedorlaomer king of Elam sent to all the neighboring kings, to Nimrod king of Shinar, who was then under his power, and to Tidal king of Goyim, and to Arioch king of Elasar, with whom he made a covenant, saying, Come up to me and assist me, so that we may smite all the towns of Sodom and its inhabitants, for they have rebelled against me these 13 years. And these 4 kings went up with all their camps, about 800,000 men. And they went as they were, and smote every man they found in their road. And the 5 kings of Sodom and Gomorrah, Shuneb king of Admah, Shemeber king of Zeboim, Berak king of Sodom, Bershak king of Gomorrah, and Bela king of Zor, went out to meet them. And they all joined together in the valley of Siddim. And these 9 kings made war in the valley of Siddim. And the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah were smitten before the kings of Elam. Furthermore, the valley of Siddim was full of lime pits, and the kings of Elam pursued the kings of Sodom. And the kings of Sodom with their camps fled and fell into the lime pits, and all that remained went to the mountain for safety. The 5 kings of Elam came after them and pursued them to the gates of Sodom, and they took all that there was in Sodom. And they plundered all the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. They also took Lot, Abram's brother's son, and his property, and they seized all the goods of the cities of Sodom, and they went away. And Eunuch, Abram's servant, who was in the battle, saw this, and told Abram all that the kings had done to the cities of Sodom, and that Lot was taken captive by them. So Abram heard this, and he rose up with about 318 men who were with him. And he pursued these kings and smote them that night. Thus they all fell before Abram and his men. And there was no one remaining, except the 4 kings who fled. And they went each his own road. Moreover, Abram recovered all the property of Sodom. Also, he recovered Lot, and his property, his wives, and little ones, and all belonging to him, so that Lot lacked nothing. And when he returned from smiting these kings, he and his men passed the valley of Siddim, where the kings had made war together. And Berak king of Sodom, and the rest of his men that were with him, went out from the lime pits towards what they had happened, to meet Abram and his men. And Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, the same with Shem, went out with his men to meet Abram and his people, with bread and wine, and they remained together in the valley of Melech. And Adonizedek blessed Abram, and Abram gave him 1/10 from all that he had brought from the spoil of his enemies, for Adonizedek was a priest before God. And all the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah who were there, with their servants, approached Abram and begged of him to return their servants to them, whom he had made captive, and to take all the property for himself. And Abram answered the kings of Sodom, saying, As Yahuwah lives, who created the heavens and earth, and who redeemed my soul from all affliction, and who delivered me today from my enemies, and gave them into my hand, I will not take anything belonging to you, so that ye do not boast tomorrow, saying, Abram became rich from our property that ye saved. For Yahuwah, my God, in whom I trust, said to me, Ye should lack nothing, for I will bless you in all the works of your hands. Now therefore, behold, here is all belonging to you, take it and go. As Yahuwah lives, I will not take a living soul down to a shoelace or thread from you, excepting the expense of the food of those who went out with me to battle, also the portions of the men who went with me, Aner, Ashkal, and Mamre, and their men, like well as those who had remained to watch the baggage. Also, they will take their portion of the spoil. Therefore the kings of Sodom gave Abram according to all that he had said, and they pressed him to take from whatever he chose, but he would not. Then he sent the kings of Sodom away, and the remainder of their men, and he gave them orders about Lot, and they went to their respective places. And Lot, his brother's son, he, too, was sent away with his property. So he went with them, and Lot returned to his home, to Sodom. Moreover, Abram and his people returned to their home to the plains of Mamre, which is in Hebron. At that time, Yahuwah appeared to Abram again in Hebron. And he said to him, Do not fear, your reward is very great before me, for I will not leave you, until I will have multiplied you, and blessed you, and made your seed like the stars in the heavens, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And I will give all these lands that you see with your eyes to your seed. To them I will give it to them for an inheritance forever. Only be strong, and do not fear, walk before me, and be perfect. And in the 78th year of the life of Abram, in that year Ru the son of Peleg died. And all the days of Ru were 239 years. Thus he died. And Sarai, the daughter of Haran, Abram's wife, was still barren during those days. She did not bear to Abram either son or daughter. And when she saw that she bore no children, she took her handmaid Hagar, whom Pharaoh had given her, and she gave her to Abram her husband for a wife. For Hagar learned all the ways of Sarai. Like Sarai taught her, she was not in any way deficient in following her good ways. And Sarai said to Abram, Behold, here is my handmaid Hagar, go to her so that she may bring forth upon my knees, so that I may obtain children through her. And at the end of 10 years of Abram's dwelling in the land of Canaan, which is the 85th year of Abram's life, Sarai gave Hagar to him. And Abram hearkened to the voice of his wife Sarai. Then he took his handmaid Hagar. Also, Abram came to her and she conceived. And when Hagar saw that she had conceived, she rejoiced greatly, and her mistress was despised in her eyes. Therefore she said within herself, This can only be that I am better before God than Sarai, my mistress, for all the days that my mistress has been with my Lord, she did not conceive. But me, Yahuwah has caused in so short a time to conceive by him. And when Sarai saw that Hagar had conceived by Abram, Sarai was jealous of her handmaid. So Sarai said within herself, Surely this is nothing more than that she must be better than I am. And Sarai said to Abram, My wrong be upon you, for at the time when you did pray before Yahuwah for children, why did you not pray on my account, that Yahuwah should give me seed from you? And when I speak to Hagar in your presence, she despised my words, because she has conceived. Yet will you not say anything to her? May Yahuwah judge between me and you for what you have done to me. And Abram said to Sarai, Behold, your handmaid is in your hand. Do to her as it may seem good in your eyes. And Sarai afflicted her, and Hagar fled from her into the wilderness. And an angel of Yahuwah found her in the place where she had fled, by a well. And he said to her, Do not fear, for I will multiply your seed. For you should bear a son, and you should call his name Ishmael. Now, then, return to Sarai your mistress, and submit yourself under her hands. And Hagar called the place of that well Beer Lahai Roi. It is between Kadesh and the wilderness of Berd. And at that time, Hagar returned to her master's house. And at the end of days Hagar bore a son to Abram, and Abram called his name Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when he begot him. Chapter 17. And during those days, in the 91st year of the life of Abram, the children of Chittim made war with the children of Tubal. For when Yahuwah had scattered the sons of men upon the face of the earth, the children of Chittim went and embodied themselves in the plain of Canopia. Also, they built themselves cities there and dwelt by the river Tibru. And the children of Tubal dwelt in Tuscana, and their boundaries reached the river Tibru. Also, the children of Tubal built a city in Tuscanan, and they called the name Sabina, after the name of Sabina, son of Tubal their father, and they dwell there to this day. And it was at that time the children of Chittim made war with the children of Tubal, and the children of Tubal were smitten before the children of Chittim, and the children of Chittim caused 370 men to fall from the children of Tubal. And at that time the children of Tubal swore to the children of Chittim, saying, You will not intermarry amongst us, and no man will give his daughter to any of the sons of Chittim. For during those days all the daughters of Tubal were fair, for no women were found in the whole earth as fair as the daughters of Tubal. And all who delighted in the beauty of women went to the daughters of Tubal and took wives from themselves. And the sons of men, kings and princes, who greatly delighted in the beauty of women, took wives during those days from the daughters of Tubal. Then, at the end of 3 years, after the children of Tubal had sworn at that time to give them their daughters for wives at that time, about 20 men of the children of Chittim went to take some of the daughters of Tubal, but they found none. For the children of Tubal kept their oaths not to intermarry with them, and they would not break their oaths. And in the days of harvest the children of Tubal went into their fields to get in their harvest. When the young men of Chittim assembled and went to the city of Sabina, and each man took a young woman from the daughters of Tubal, and they came to their cities. And the children of Tubal heard of it. Therefore they went to make war with them, but they could not prevail over them, for the mountain was exceedingly high from them. And when they saw they could not prevail over them, they returned to their land. And at the revolution of the year, the children of Tubal went and hired about 10,000 men from those cities that were near them, and they went to war with the children of Chittim. And the children of Tubal went to war with the children of Chittim, to destroy their land and to distress them. And in this engagement the children of Tubal prevailed over the children of Chittim. However, the children of Chittim, seeing that they were greatly distressed, lifted up the children which they had by the daughters of Tubal, upon the wall which had been built, to be before the eyes of the children of Tubal. And the children of Chittim said to them, Have you come to make war with your own sons and daughters? And have we not been considered your flesh and bones from that time until now? And when the children of Tubal heard this, they ceased to make war with the children of Chittim, and they went away. And they returned to their cities. And the children of Chittim at that time assembled and built 2 cities by the sea, and they called one Purdu and the other Erizah. And Abram the son of Terah was then 99 years old. At that time Yahuwah appeared to him, and he said to him, I will make my covenant between me and you, and I will greatly multiply your seed. And this is the covenant which I make between me and you, that every male child be circumcised, you and your seed after you. At 8 days old it will be circumcised, and this covenant will be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. Now therefore your name will no longer be called Abram but Abraham, and your wife will no longer be called Sarai but Sarah. For I will bless you both, and I will multiply your seed after you, that you will become a great nation, and kings will come forth from you. Chapter 18. Then Abraham rose and did all that God had ordered him, and he took the men of his household and those bought with his money, and he circumcised them as Yahuwah had commanded him. And there was not one left whom he did not circumcise. Then Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised in the flesh of their foreskin. Ishmael was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. And in the third day Abraham went out of his tent, and sat at the door to enjoy the heat of the sun, during the pain of his flesh. And Yahuwah appeared to him in the plain of Mamre, and sent 3 of his ministering angels to visit him. And he was sitting at the door of the tent. Furthermore, he lifted his eyes and saw, and behold, 3 men were coming from a distance. So he rose up and ran to meet them, and he bowed down to them and brought them into his house. And he said to them, If now I have found favor in your sight, turn in and eat a morsel of bread. And he pressed them, and they turned in, and he gave them water, and they washed their feet, and he placed them under a tree at the door of the tent. Therefore Abraham ran and took a calf, tender and good. Then he hurried to kill it, and gave it to his servant Eliezer to dress. Then Abraham came to Sarah into the tent, and he said to her, Quickly, make 3 measures of fine meal ready, knead it and make cakes to cover the pot containing the meat. And she did so. Then Abraham hurried and brought butter and milk before them, beef and mutton, and gave it before them to eat before the flesh of the calf was sufficiently done. And they did eat. And when they had done eating, one of them said to him, I will return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah your wife will have a son. Afterwards the men departed and went their ways, to the places to which they were sent. In those days all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah, and of the whole 5 cities, were exceedingly wicked and sinful against Yahuwah. And they provoked Yahuwah with their abominations, and they strengthened in aging abominably and scornfully before Yahuwah. Also during those days their wickedness and crimes were great before Yahuwah, and they had a very extensive valley in their land, about half a day's walk. And in it there were fountains of water and a great deal of herbs surrounding the water. And all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah went there 4 times in the year, with their wives and children and all belonging to them, and they rejoiced there with timbrels and dances. And in the time of rejoicing they would all rise and lay hold of their neighbors' wives, and some the virgin daughters of their neighbors, and they enjoyed them. And each man saw his wife and daughter in the hands of his neighbor, but did not say a word. And they did so from morning to night. And they afterward returned home, each man to his house, and each woman to her tent. So they always did 4 times in the year. Also, when a stranger came into their cities, and brought goods that he had purchased with a view to dispose of there, the people of these cities would assemble, men, women, and children, young and old, and go to the man and take his goods by force, giving a little to each man until there was an end to all the goods of the owner which he had brought into the land. And if the owner of the goods quarreled with them, saying, What is this work that you have done to me? Then they would approach to him one by one, and each would show him the little which he took and taunt him, saying, I only took the little that you gave me. And when he heard this from them all, he would arise and go from them in sorrow and bitterness of soul, when they would all arise and go after him, and drive him out of the city with great noise and tumult. And there was a man from the country of Elam who was leisurely going on the road, seated upon his ass, which carried a fine mantle of diverse colors. Also the mantle was bound with a cord upon the ass. And the man was on his journey passing through the street of Sodom when the sun set in the evening, and he remained there in order to abide during the night. But no one would let him into his house. And at that time there was in Sodom a wicked and mischievous man, one skillful to do evil, and his name was Hadad. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the traveler in the street of the city, and he came to him and said, Where did you come from, and where are you going? And the man said to him, I am traveling from Hebron to Elam, where I belong. And as I passed, the sun set, and no one would suffer me to enter his house, even though I had bread and water, also straw and provender for my ass, and am short of nothing. And Hadad answered and said to him, All that you should want will be supplied by me, but you should not abide in the street all night. And Hadad brought him to his house, and he took off the mantle from the ass with the cord, and brought them to his house. Also he gave the ass straw and provender, while the traveler ate and drank in Hadad's house. And he abode there that night. And in the morning the traveler rose up early to continue his journey, when Hadad said to him, Wait, comfort your heart with a morsel of bread, and then go. And the man did so. And he remained with him, and they both ate and drank together during the day, when the man rose up to go. And Hadad said to him, Behold, now the day is declining. You had better remain all night, so that your heart may be comforted. And he pressed him so that he tarried there all night. And on the 2nd day he rose up early to go away, when Hadad pressed him, saying, Comfort your heart with a morsel of bread, and then go. So he remained and ate with him the 2nd day, too. And then the man rose up to continue his journey. And Hadad said to him, Behold, now the day is declining, remain with me to comfort your heart. And in the morning rise up early and go your way. However, the man would not remain, but rose and saddled his ass. And while he was saddling his ass, the wife of Hadad said to her husband, Behold, this man has remained with us for 2 days eating and drinking, and he has given us nothing, and now will he go away from us without giving anything? But Hadad said to her, Be silent. And the man saddled his ass to go, and he asked Hadad to give him the cord and mantle to tie it upon the ass. And Hadad said to him, What are you saying? And he said to him, That you, my lord, should give me the cord and the mantle made with diverse colors, which you concealed in your house with you to take care of it. But Hadad answered the man, saying, This is the interpretation of your dream. The cord which you did see means that your life will be lengthened out like a cord, and having seen the mantle colored with all sorts of colors, means that you should have a vineyard in which you will plant trees of all fruits. And the traveler answered, saying, Not so, my lord, for I was awake when I gave you the cord. Also, a mantle woven with different colors, which you took off the ass to put them by for me. And Hadad answered and said, Surely I have told you the interpretation of your dream. And it is a good dream, and this is the interpretation of it. Now the sons of men give me 4 pieces of silver, which is my charge for interpreting dreams, and of you only I require 3 pieces of silver. And the man was provoked by the words of Hadad, and he cried bitterly, and he brought Hadad to Sarach the judge of Sodom. And the man laid his cause before Sarach the judge, when Hadad replied, saying, It is not so, but thus the matter stands. And the judge said to the traveler, This man Hadad tells you truth, for he is famed in the cities for the accurate interpretation of dreams. And the man cried at the word of the judge, and he said, Not so, my lord, for it was in the day that I gave him the cord and mantle, which was upon the ass, in order to put them by in his house. And they both disputed before the judge, the one saying this, and the other saying that. And Hadad said to the man, Give me the 4 pieces of silver that I charge for my dream interpretations. I will not make any allowance. Also, give me the expense of the 4 meals that you ate in my house. And the man said to Hadad, Truly I will pay you for what I ate in your house, only give me the cord and mantle, which you hid in your house. And Hadad replied before the judge and said to the man, Did I not tell you the interpretation of your dream? The cord means that your days will be prolonged like a cord, and the mantle, that you will have a vineyard in which you will plant all kinds of fruit trees. This is the proper interpretation of your dream. Now give me the 4 pieces of silver that I require as a compensation, for I will make you no allowance. Therefore the man cried at the words of Hadad, and they both quarreled before the judge. So the judge gave orders to his servants, who drove them rashly from the house. And they went away quarreling from the judge. When the people of Sodom heard them, and they gathered about them, and they exclaimed against the stranger, and they drove him rashly from the city. And the man continued his journey upon his ass with bitterness of soul, lamenting and weeping. And while he was going along, he wept at what had happened to him in the corrupt city of Sodom. Chapter 19. And the cities of Sodom had 4 judges for 4 cities, and these were their names: Sarach in the city of Sodom, Sharkat and Gomorrah, Zabmach and Admah, and Menon and Zeboim. And Eliezer Abraham's servant applied different names to them, and he converted Sarach to Shakra, Sharkat to Shakra, Zabmach to Kezobim, and Menon to Matzladin. And by desire of their 4 judges the people of Sodom and Gomorrah had beds erected in the streets of the cities. And if a man came to these places, they laid hold of him and brought him to one of their beds, and by force made him to lie in them. And as he lay down, 3 men would stand at his head and 3 at his feet, and measure him by the length of the bed. And if the man was less than the bed, these 6 men would stretch him at each end. And when he cried out to them, they would not answer him. And if he was longer than the bed, they would draw together the 2 sides of the bed at each end, until the man had reached the gates of death. And if he continued to cry out to them, they would answer him, saying, Thus will it be done to a man who comes into our land. And when men heard all these things that the people of the cities of Sodom did, they refrained from coming there. And when a poor man came to their land, they would give him silver and gold, and cause a proclamation in the whole city not to give him a morsel of bread to eat. And if the stranger should remain there some days, and die from hunger, not having been able to obtain a morsel of bread, then at his death all the people of the city would come and take their silver and gold which they had given to him. And those that could recognize the silver or gold, which they had given him, took it back, and at his death they also stripped him of his garments. Also they would fight about them, and he that prevailed over his neighbor took them. After that they would carry him and bury him under some of the shrubs in the deserts. This they did all the days to any one that came to them and died in their land. And in the course of time Sarah sent Eliezer to Sodom, to see Lot and inquire after his welfare. And Eliezer went to Sodom. and he met a man of Sodom fighting with a stranger. And the man of Sodom stripped the poor man of all his clothes and went away. And this poor man cried to Eliezer, and supplicated his favor on account of what the man of Sodom had done to him. And he said to him, Why do you act like this to the poor man who came to your land? And the man of Sodom answered Eliezer, saying, Is this man your brother, or have the people of Sodom made you a judge today, so that you speak about this man? And Eliezer strove with the man of Sodom on account of the poor man. And when Eliezer approached to recover the poor man's clothes from the man of Sodom, he hurried and with a stone smote Eliezer in the forehead. And the blood flowed freely from Eliezer's forehead. And when the man saw the blood, he caught hold of Eliezer, saying, Give me my hire for having rid you of this bad blood that was in your forehead, for such is the custom and the law in our land. And Eliezer said to him, You have wounded me, yet require me to pay you your hire. And Eliezer would not hearken to the words of the man of Sodom. And the man laid hold of Eliezer, and brought him to Jasher the judge of Sodom for judgment. And the man spoke to the judge, saying, I beseech you, my lord, thus this man has done. For I smote him with a stone, so that the blood flowed from his forehead, and he is unwilling to give me my hire. And the judge said to Eliezer, This man speaks the truth to you, give him his hire, for this is the custom in our land. Therefore Eliezer heard the words of the judge, and he lifted up a stone and smote the judge, and the stone struck on his forehead, and the blood flowed freely from the forehead of the judge. And Eliezer said, Therefore, if this is the custom in your land, you give to this man what I should have given him, for this has been your decision, you did decree it. Then Eliezer left the man of Sodom with the judge, and he went away. And when the kings of Elam had made war with the kings of Sodom, the kings of Elam captured all the property of Sodom, and they took Lot captive with his property. And when it was told to Abraham, he went and made war with the kings of Elam, and he recovered from their hands all the property of Lot as well as the property of Sodom. At that time the wife of Lot bore him a daughter, and he called her name Paltith, saying, Because God had delivered him and his whole household from the kings of Elam. And Paltith, daughter of Lot, grew up, and one of the men of Sodom took her for a wife. And a poor man came into the city to seek a maintenance, and he remained in the city some days. And all the people of Sodom caused a proclamation of their custom not to give this man a morsel of bread to eat, until he dropped dead upon the earth, and they did so. And Paltith, the daughter of Lot, saw this man lying in the street starved with hunger, and no one would give him anything to keep him alive. And he was just upon the point of death. And her soul was filled with pity on account of the man, and she fed him secretly with bread for many days, and the soul of this man was revived. For when she went to fetch water, she would put the bread in the water pitcher, and when she came to the place where the poor man was, she took the bread from the pitcher and gave it to him to eat. So she did many days. And all the people of Sodom and Gomorrah wondered how this man could bear starvation for so many days. And they said to each other, This can only be that he eats and drinks, for no man can bear starvation for many days or live as this man has, without even his countenance changing. And 3 men concealed themselves in a place where the poor man was positioned, to know who it was that brought him bread to eat. And Paltith, the daughter of Lot, went that day to fetch water, and she put bread into her pitcher of water, and she went to draw water by the poor man's place. Then she took out the bread from the pitcher and gave it to the poor man, and he ate it. And the 3 men saw what Paltith did to the poor man, and they said to her, It is you, then, who have supported him. Therefore has he not starved, nor changed in appearance, nor died like the rest. And the 3 men went out of the place in which they were concealed, and they seized Paltith, and the bread which was in the poor man's hand. And they took Paltith, and brought her before their judges. And they said to them, Thus did she do, and it is she who supplied the poor man with bread. Therefore he did not die all this time. Now therefore declare to us the punishment due to this woman for having transgressed our law. And the people of Sodom and Gomorrah assembled, and kindled a fire in the street of the city. And they took the woman and cast her into the fire, and she was burned to ashes. And in the city of Admah there was a woman to whom they did the same. For a traveler came into the city of Admah to abide there all night, with the intention of going home in the morning. And he sat opposite the door of the house of the young woman's father, to remain there, like the sun had set when he reached that place. And the young woman saw him sitting by the door of the house, and he asked her for a drink of water. And she said to him, Who are you? And he said to her, I was today going on the road, and reached here when the sun set, so I will abide here all night. Then, in the morning, I will arise early and continue my journey. And the young woman went into the house, and fetched the man bread and water to eat and drink. And this affair became known to the people of Admah. Therefore they assembled and brought the young woman before the judges, so that they should judge her for this act. And the judge said, The judgment of death must pass upon this woman because she transgressed our law. Therefore, this is the decision concerning her. And the people of those cities assembled and brought out the young woman, and anointed her with honey from head to foot, like the judge had decreed. And they placed her before a swarm of bees which were then in their hives, and the bees flew upon her and stung her that her whole body was swelled. And the young woman cried out on account of the bees, but no one took notice of her or pitied her, and her cries ascended to the heavens. And Yahuwah was provoked at this and at all the works of the cities of Sodom, for they had abundance of food, and had tranquility amongst them, and still would not sustain the poor and the needy. And during those days their evil doings and sins became great before Yahuwah. And Yahuwah sent for 2 of the angels that had come to Abraham's house to destroy Sodom and its cities. And the angels rose up from the door of Abraham's tent after they had eaten and drunk, and they reached Sodom in the evening. And Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom, and when he saw them he rose to meet them, and he bowed down to the ground. Furthermore, he pressed them greatly and brought them into his house, and he gave them victuals which they ate. And they abode all night in his house. And the angel said to Lot, Arise, go from this place, you and all belonging to you, lest you are consumed in the iniquity of this city, for Yahuwah will destroy this place. And the angels laid hold upon the hand of Lot, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hands of his children, and all belonging to him. Then they brought him forth and set him outside the cities. And they said to Lot, Escape for your life. So he fled, and all belonging to him. Then Yahuwah rained fire and brimstone from Yahuwah out of the heavens upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah, also upon all these cities. And he overthrew these cities, all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities, and what grew upon the ground. And Adu, the wife of Lot, looked back to see the destruction of the cities, for her compassion was moved on account of her daughters who remained in Sodom, for they did not go with her. And when she looked back, she became a pillar of salt, and it is yet in that place to this day. And the oxen which stood in that place daily licked up the salt to the extremities of their feet. And in the morning it would spring forth afresh. So they licked it up again to this day. And Lot and 2 of his daughters that remained with him fled and escaped to the cave of Adullam, and they remained there for some time. And Abraham rose up early in the morning to see what had been done to the cities of Sodom. And he looked and beheld the smoke of the cities going up like the smoke of a furnace. And Lot and his 2 daughters remained in the cave. And they made their father drink wine, and they laid with him, for they said there was no man upon earth that could raise up seed from them, for they thought that the whole earth was destroyed. And they both laid with their father, and they conceived and bore sons. And the firstborn called the name of her son Moab, saying, I conceived him from my father. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger also called her son Benami. He is the father of the children of Ammon to this day. And after this, Lot and his 2 daughters went away from there. Furthermore, he dwelt on the other side of the Jordan with his 2 daughters and their sons. And the sons of Lot grew up. Moreover, they went and took themselves wives from the land of Canaan, and they begat children, and they were fruitful and multiplied. Chapter 20. And at that time Abraham journeyed from the plain of Mamre, and he went to the land of the Philistines, and he dwelt in Gerar. It was during the 25th year of Abraham's being in the land of Canaan, and the 100th year of the life of Abraham, that he came to Gerar in the land of the Philistines. And when they entered the land, he said to Sarah his wife, Say you are my sister to anyone who asks you, in order that we may escape the evil of the inhabitants of the land. And as Abraham was dwelling in the land of the Philistines, the servants of Abimelech, king of the Philistines, saw that Sarah was exceedingly beautiful, and they asked Abraham concerning her, and he said, She is my sister. And the servants of Abimelech went to Abimelech, saying, A man from the land of Canaan is come to dwell in the land, and he has a sister who is very fair. And Abimelech heard the words of his servants who praised Sarah to him, and Abimelech sent his officers, and they brought Sarah to the king. And Sarah came to the house of Abimelech, and the king saw that Sarah was beautiful, and she pleased him exceedingly. And he approached her, and said to her, What is that man to you, with whom you came to our land? So Sarah answered and said, He is my brother, and we came from the land of Canaan to dwell wherever we could find a place. Therefore Abimelech said to Sarah, Behold, my land is before you. Place your brother in any part of this land that pleases you, and it will be our duty to exalt and elevate him above all the people of the land, since he is your brother. And Abimelech sent for Abraham, and Abraham came to Abimelech. And Abimelech said to Abraham, Behold, I have given orders that you should be honored as you desire on account of your sister Sarah. And Abraham went from the king, and the king's present followed him. As at evening time, before men lie down to rest, the king was sitting upon his throne, and a deep sleep fell upon him, and he lay upon the throne and slept until morning. And he dreamed that an angel of Yahuwah came to him with a drawn sword in his hand, and the angel stood over Abimelech and wished to slay him with the sword. And the king was terrified in his dream, and said to the angel, "In what way have I sinned against you, so that you come to slay me with your sword?" And the angel answered and said to Abimelech, "Behold, you will die on account of the woman who you did bring to your house last night, for she is a married woman, the wife of Abraham who came to your house. Thou therefore return that man his wife, for she is his wife. And should you not return her, know that you will surely die, you and all belonging to you." And on that night there was a great outcry in the land of the Philistines, and the inhabitants of the land saw the figure of a man standing with a drawn sword in his hand. And he smote the inhabitants of the land with the sword. Indeed, he continued to smite them. And the angel of Yahuwah smote the whole land of the Philistines on that night. And there was a great confusion on that night. And on the following morning, and every womb was closed, and all their issues, and the hand of Yahuwah was upon them on account of Sarah, wife of Abraham, whom Abimelech had taken. And in the morning Abimelech rose with terror and confusion, and with a great dread. Therefore he sent and had his servants called in, and he related his dream to them, and the people were greatly afraid. And one man standing amongst the servants of the king answered the king, saying, "O sovereign king, restore this woman to her husband, for he is her husband. For the same thing happened to the king of Egypt when this man came to Egypt." And he said concerning his wife, "She is my sister, for such is his manner of doing when he comes to dwell in the land in which he is a stranger." And Pharaoh sent, and took this woman for a wife. However, Yahuwah brought grievous plagues upon him, until he returned the woman to her husband. Thou therefore, O sovereign king, know what happened last night to the whole land, for there was a very great distress, and great pain, and lamentation. And we know that it was on account of the woman that you took. Now therefore restore this woman to her husband, lest it should befall us as it did to Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and his subjects, and so that we may not die. And Abimelech hurried and called and had Sarah called for, and she came before him, and he had Abraham called for, and he came before him. And Abimelech said to them, "What is this work you have been doing in saying you are brother and sister, and I took this woman for a wife?" And Abraham said, "Because I thought I would suffer death on account of my wife." Therefore Abimelech took flocks, and herds, and men servants, and maid servants, and 1,000 pieces of silver, and he gave them to Abraham. Also he returned Sarah to him. And Abimelech said to Abraham, "Behold, the whole land is before you, dwell in it wherever you should choose." Furthermore, Abraham and Sarah, his wife, went from the king's presence with honor and respect, and they dwelt in the land, even in Gerar. And all the inhabitants of the land of the Philistines and the king's servants were still in pain, through the plague which the angel had inflicted upon them the whole night on account of Sarah. And Abimelech sent for Abraham, saying, "Now pray now for your servants to Yahuwah your God, so that ye may put away this mortality from amongst us." And Abraham prayed on account of Abimelech and his subjects, and Yahuwah heard the prayer of Abraham, and he healed Abimelech and all his subjects. Chapter 21. And it was at that time, at the end of 1 year and 4 months of Abraham dwelling in the land of the Philistines in Gerar, that God visited Sarah, and Yahuwah remembered her, and she conceived and bore a son to Abraham. And Abraham called the name of the son which was born to him, which Sarah bore to him, Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac at 8 days old, like God had commanded Abraham to do to his seed after him. And Abraham was 100, and Sarah was 90 years old, when Isaac was born to them. Furthermore, the child grew up and he was weaned. And Abraham made a great feast on the day that Isaac was weaned. And Shem, and Eber, and all the great people of the land, and Abimelech king of the Philistines, and his servants, and Phicol, the captain of his host, came to eat and drink and rejoice at the feast which Abraham made upon the day of his son Isaac being weaned. Also Terah the father of Abraham, and Nahor his brother, came from Haran, they and all belonging to them, for they greatly rejoiced on hearing that a son had been born to Sarah. And they came to Abraham, and they ate and drank at the feast which Abraham made upon the day of Isaac's being weaned. And Terah and Nahor rejoiced with Abraham, and they remained with him for many days in the land of the Philistines. At that time Sarah the son of Ru died, in the 1st year of the birth of Isaac, the son of Abraham. And all the days of Sarah were 239 years, thus he died. And Ishmael the son of Abraham was grown up during those days. He was 14 years old when Sarah bore Isaac to Abraham. Furthermore, God was with Ishmael the son of Abraham, and he grew up, and he learned to use the bow, and became an archer. And when Isaac was 5 years old, he was sitting with Ishmael at the door of the tent. And Ishmael came to Isaac and seated himself opposite to him, and he took the bow, and drew it, and put the arrow in it, and intended to slay Isaac. And Sarah saw the act which Ishmael desired to do to her son Isaac, and it grieved her exceedingly on account of her son. So she sent for Abraham, and said to him, Cast out this bondwoman and her son, for her son will not be heir with my son, for thus did he seek to do to him this day. And Abraham hearkened to the voice of Sarah, and he rose up early in the morning, and he took 12 loaves and a bottle of water which he gave to Hagar, and sent her away with her son, and Hagar went with her son to the wilderness. Therefore they dwelt in the wilderness of Paran with the inhabitants of the wilderness, and Ishmael was an archer, and he dwelt in the wilderness a long time. Then, afterward, he and his mother went to the land of Egypt, and they dwelt there, and Hagar took a wife for her son from Egypt, and her name was Meribah. And the wife of Ishmael conceived and bore 4 sons and 2 daughters. Later, Ishmael and his mother and his wife and children went and returned to the wilderness, and they made themselves tents in the wilderness, in which they dwelt, and they continued to travel, and then to rest monthly and yearly. And God gave Ishmael flocks and herds and tents on account of Abraham his father, and the man increased in cattle. Also, Ishmael dwelt in deserts and in tents, traveling and resting for a long time, and he did not see the face of his father. And in some time after, Abraham said to Sarah his wife, I will go and see my son Ishmael, for I have a desire to see him, for I have not seen him for a long time. And Abraham rode upon one of his camels to the wilderness to seek his son Ishmael, for he heard that he was dwelling in a tent in the wilderness with all belonging to him. And Abraham went to the wilderness, and he reached the tent of Ishmael about noon, and he asked after Ishmael, and he found the wife of Ishmael sitting in the tent with her children. However, Ishmael her husband and his mother were not with them. And Abraham asked the wife of Ishmael, saying, Where has Ishmael gone? And she said, He has gone to the field to hunt. And Abraham was still mounted upon the camel, for he would not get off to the ground, as he had sworn to his wife Sarah that he would not get off from the camel. And Abraham said to Ishmael's wife, My daughter, give me a little water so that I may drink, for I am fatigued from the journey. However, Ishmael's wife answered and said to Abraham, We have neither water nor bread. And she continued sitting in the tent, and did not notice Abraham, nor did she ask him who he was. But she was beating her children in the tent, and she was cursing them, and she also cursed her husband Ishmael, and reproached him. And Abraham heard the words of Ishmael's wife to her children. Therefore he was very angry and displeased. And Abraham called to the woman to come out to him from the tent, and the woman came and stood opposite to Abraham, for Abraham was still mounted upon the camel. And Abraham said to Ishmael's wife, When your husband Ishmael returns home, say these words to him, A very old man from the land of the Philistines came here to seek you, and this was his appearance and figure. I did not ask him who he was, and seeing you was not here, he spoke to me and said, When Ishmael your husband returns, tell him, This is what the man said, When you come home, put away this nail of the tent which you have placed here, and place another nail in its stead. And Abraham finished his instructions to the woman, and he turned and went off on the camel homeward. And after that Ishmael came from the chase, he and his mother, and returned to the tent, and his wife spoke these words to him, A very old man from the land of the Philistines came to seek you, and thus was his appearance and figure. I did not ask him who he was, and seeing you were not at home, he said to me, When your husband comes home, tell him, Thus saith the old man, Put away the nail of the tent which you have placed here, and place another nail in its stead. And Ishmael heard the words of his wife, and he knew that it was his father, and that his wife did not honor him. And Ishmael understood his father's words that he had spoken to his wife, and Ishmael hearkened to the voice of his father. Therefore Ishmael cast off that woman, and she went away. Afterward Ishmael went to the land of Canaan, and he took another wife. Then he brought her to his tent to the place where he dwelt. And at the end of 3 years Abraham said, I will go again and see Ishmael my son, for I have not seen him for a long time. So he rode upon his camel, and went to the wilderness, and he reached the tent of Ishmael about noon. And he asked after Ishmael, and his wife came out of the tent. And she said, He is not here, my lord, for he has gone to hunt in the fields, and to feed the camels. Then the woman said to Abraham, Turn in, my lord, into the tent, and eat a morsel of bread, for your soul must be wearied on account of the journey. And Abraham said to her, I will not stop, for I am in haste to continue my journey, but give me a little water to drink, for I have thirst. Therefore the woman hurried and ran into the tent, and she brought out water and bread to Abraham, which she placed before him. Then she urged him to eat. So he ate and drank, and his heart was comforted. So he blessed his son Ishmael. Furthermore, he finished his meal, and he blessed Jehu. And he said to Ishmael's wife, When Ishmael comes home, say these words to him, A very old man from the land of the Philistines came here, and asked after you, but you were not here. However, I brought him out bread and water, and he ate and drank, and his heart was comforted. And he spoke these words to me, When Ishmael your husband comes home, say to him, The nail of the tent which you have is very good, do not put it away from the tent. And Abraham finished commanding the woman, and he rode off to his home to the land of the Philistines. Moreover, when Ishmael came to his tent, his wife went to meet him with joy and a cheerful heart. And she said to him, An old man came here from the land of the Philistines, and this was his appearance. And he asked after you, but you were not here. So I brought out bread and water, and he ate and drank, and his heart was comforted. And he spoke these words to me, When Ishmael your husband comes home, say to him, The nail of the tent which you have is very good, do not put it away from the tent. And Ishmael knew that it was his father, and that his wife had honored him, and Yahuwah blessed Ishmael. Chapter 22. Then Ishmael rose up and took his wife, and his children, and his cattle, and all belonging to him. And he journeyed from there. And he went to his father in the land of the Philistines. And Abraham related to Ishmael his son the transaction with the first wife that Ishmael took, according to what she did. And Ishmael and his children dwelt with Abraham for many days in that land. Also Abraham dwelt in the land of the Philistines a long time. And the days increased and reached 26 years. And after that Abraham with his servants, and all belonging to him, went from the land of the Philistines and removed to a great distance. And they came near to Hebron. And they remained there. And the servants of Abraham dug wells of water, and Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt by the water. Furthermore, the servants of Abimelech king of the Philistines heard the report that Abraham's servants had dug wells of water in the borders of the land. And they came and quarreled with the servants of Abraham, and they robbed them of the great well which they had dug. And Abimelech king of the Philistines heard of this affair, and he with Phicol the captain of his host and 20 of his men came to Abraham. And Abimelech spoke to Abraham concerning his servants, and Abraham rebuked Abimelech concerning the well of which his servants had robbed him. And Abimelech said to Abraham, As Yahuwah lives, who created the whole earth, I did not hear of the act which my servants did to your servants until this day. Therefore Abraham took 7 ewe lambs and gave them to Abimelech, saying, I pray you, take these from my hands, so that it may be a testimony for me that I dug this well. And Abimelech took the 7 ewe lambs which Abraham had given to him, for he had also given him cattle and herds in abundance. And Abimelech swore to Abraham concerning the well. Therefore he called that well Beersheba, for there they both swore concerning it. And they both made a covenant in Beersheba. Then Abimelech rose up with Phicol the captain of his host and all his men, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. Furthermore, Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt in Beersheba, and he was in that land a long time. And Abraham planted a large grove in Beersheba, and he made 4 gates in it that faced the 4 sides of the earth, and he planted a vineyard in it, so that if a traveler came to Abraham, he could enter any gate which was in his road, and remain there, and eat and drink, and satisfy himself, and then depart. For the house of Abraham was always open to the sons of men who passed and repassed, who came to eat and drink daily in the house of Abraham. Furthermore, any man who had hunger and came to Abraham's house, Abraham would give him bread so that he might eat and drink and be satisfied. Also, any one that came naked to his house he would clothe with garments as he might choose, and give him silver and gold, and make Yahuwah, who had created him in the earth, known to him. Abraham did this all his life. Then Abraham and his children and all belonging to him dwelt in Beersheba, and he pitched his tent as far as Hebron. Moreover, Abraham's brother Nahor and his father and all belonging to them dwelt in Haran, for they did not come with Abraham to the land of Canaan. And children were born to Nahor which Milcah the daughter of Haran, and sister to Sarah, Abraham's wife, bore for him. And these are the names of those that were born to him: Uz, Buz, Kemuel, Chesed, Chazo, Pildash, Tidlaph, and Bethuel, being 8 sons. These are the children of Milcah, who she bore for Nahor, Abraham's brother. Also, Nahor had a concubine, and her name was Reumah. Also, she bore to Nahor Zabok, Gachesh, Takash, and Maachah, being 4 sons. And the children who were born to Nahor were 12 sons besides his daughters. Also, they had children born to them in Haran. And the children of Uz the firstborn of Nahor were Abi, Cherith, Gadding, Melis, and Deborah their sister. And the sons of Buz were Berashel, Nameth, Sheva, and Madanu. And the sons of Kemuel were Aram and Rechab. And the sons of Chesed were Anamlech, Meshai, Benon, and Yiphi. And the sons of Chazo were Pildash, Mechai, and Ophir. And the sons of Pildash were Arad, Chamim, Merd, and Moloch. And the sons of Tidlaph were Mushan, Cushan, and Mutzi. And the children of Bethuel were Sachar, Laban, and their sister Rebekah. These are the families of the children of Nahor that were born to them in Haran. And Aram the son of Kemuel and Rechab his brother went away from Haran, and they found a valley in the land by the river Euphrates. And they built a city there, and they called the name of the city after the name of Pether the son of Aram, that is Aram Naharaim to this day. Also, the children of Kish went to dwell where they could find a place, and they went. And they found a valley opposite to the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And there they built themselves a city, and they called the name of the city Kish after the name of their father, that is the land Casdim to today. And the Casdim dwelt in that land, and they were fruitful, and multiplied exceedingly. And Terah, the father of Nahor and Abraham, went and took another wife in his old age, and her name was Pelilah. And she conceived and bore him a son, and he called his name Zobah. And Terah lived 25 years after he begot Zobah. And Terah died in that year, that is in the 35th year of the birth of Isaac, the son of Abraham. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and he was buried in Haran. And Zobah, the son of Terah, lived for 30 years. And he begot Aram, Achliz, and Merek. And Aram son of Zobah son of Terah had 3 wives, and he begat 12 sons and 3 daughters. And Jehuah gave to Aram the son of Zobah riches and possessions, and abundance of cattle, and flocks and herds, and the man increased greatly. Furthermore, Aram the son of Zobah and his brother and all his household journeyed from Haran. And they went to dwell where they should find a place, for their property was too great to remain in Haran. For they could not stop in Haran together with their brethren the children of Nahor. And Aram the son of Zobah went with his brethren, and they found a valley at a distance toward the eastern country. And they dwelt there. Also, they built a city there, and they called the name of it Aram, after the name of their eldest brother. It is Aram Zobah to this day. And Isaac the son of Abraham was growing up during those days, and Abraham his father taught him the way of Jehuah to know Jehuah, and Jehuah was with him. And when Isaac was 37 years old, Ishmael his brother was going about with him in the tent. And Ishmael boasted of himself to Isaac, saying, I was 13 years old when Jehuah spoke to my father to circumcise us, and I did according to the word of Jehuah which he spoke to my father, and I gave my soul to Jehuah, and I did not transgress his word which he commanded my father. And Isaac answered Ishmael, saying, Why do you boast to me about this, about a little bit of your flesh that you took from your body, concerning which Jehuah commanded you? As Jehuah lives, the God of my father Abraham, if Jehuah should say to my father, Now, take your son Isaac and bring him up an offering before me, I would not refrain, but I would joyfully consent to it. And Jehuah heard the word that Isaac spoke to Ishmael, and it seemed good in the sight of Jehuah, and he thought to test Abraham in this matter. And the day arrived when the sons of God came and placed themselves before Jehuah. Also, Satan came with the sons of God before Jehuah. And Jehuah said to Satan, Where have you come from? And Satan answered Jehuah, and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And Jehuah said to Satan, What is your word to me concerning all the children of the earth? Therefore Satan answered Jehuah and said, I have seen all the children of the earth who serve you, and remember you, when they require anything from you. However, when you give them the thing which they require from you, they sit at ease, and forsake you. Then they will not remember you any more. Have you seen Abraham, the son of Terah, who had no children at first, and he served you and erected altars to you wherever he came, and he brought up offerings upon them, and he proclaimed your name continually to all the children of the earth. And now that his son Isaac is born to him, he has forsaken you, he has made a great feast for all the inhabitants of the land, but he has forgotten Jehuah, for among all that he did not bring you an offering. Not an ascension offering, nor a restoration offering, not ox, lamb, nor goat of all that he killed on the day that his son was weaned. Even from the time of his son's birth until now, being 37 years, he built no altar before you, nor brought any offering to you, for he saw that you gave what he requested before you. Therefore he forsook you. And Jehuah said to Satan, Have you thus considered my servant Abraham? For there is no one like him upon earth, a perfect and an upright man before me, one that fears God and avoids evil. As I live, were I to say to him, Bring up Isaac your son before me, he would not withhold him from me, much more if I told him to bring up an ascension offering before me from his flock or herds. And Satan answered Jehuah, and said, Now then, speak to Abraham as you have said, and you will see if he will not transgress and cast aside your words today. Chapter 23. Chapter 22. Then Ishmael rose up and took his wife, and his children, and his cattle, and all belonging to him, and he journeyed from there. And he went to his father in the land of the Philistines. And Abraham related to Ishmael his son the transaction with the first wife that Ishmael took, according to what she did. And Ishmael and his children dwelt with Abraham for many days in that land. Also Abraham dwelt in the land of the Philistines a long time. And the days increased and reached 26 years. And after that, Abraham with his servants, and all belonging to him, went from the land of the Philistines and removed to a great distance. And they came near to Hebron, and they remained there. And the servants of Abraham dug wells of water, and Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt by the water. Furthermore, the servants of Abimelech king of the Philistines heard the report that Abraham's servants had dug wells of water in the borders of the land. And they came and quarreled with the servants of Abraham, and they robbed them of the great well which they had dug. And Abimelech king of the Philistines heard of this affair, and he with Phicol the captain of his host and 20 of his men came to Abraham. And Abimelech spoke to Abraham concerning his servants, and Abraham rebuked Abimelech concerning the well of which his servants had robbed him. And Abimelech said to Abraham, As Yahweh lives, who created the whole earth, I did not hear of the act which my servants did to your servants until this day. Therefore Abraham took 7 ewe lambs and gave them to Abimelech, saying, I pray you, take these from my hands, so that it may be a testimony for me that I dug this well. And Abimelech took the 7 ewe lambs which Abraham had given to him, for he had also given him cattle and herds in abundance. And Abimelech swore to Abraham concerning the well. Therefore he called that well Beersheba, for there they both swore concerning it. And they both made a covenant in Beersheba. Then Abimelech rose up with Phicol the captain of his host and all his men, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. Furthermore, Abraham and all belonging to him dwelt in Beersheba, and he was in that land a long time. And Abraham planted a large grove in Beersheba, and he made 4 gates in it that faced the 4 sides of the earth, and he planted a vineyard in it, so that if a traveler came to Abraham, he could enter any gate which was in his road, and remain there, and eat, and drink, and satisfy himself, and then depart. For the house of Abraham was always open to the sons of men who passed and repassed, who came to eat and drink daily in the house of Abraham. Furthermore, any man who had hunger and came to Abraham's house, Abraham would give him bread so that he might eat and drink and be satisfied. Also, any one that came naked to his house he would clothe with garments as he might choose, and give him silver and gold, and make Yahuwah, who had created him in the earth, known to him. Abraham did this all his life. Then Abraham and his children and all belonging to him dwelt in Beersheba, and he pitched his tent as far as Hebron. Moreover, Abraham's brother Nahor and his father and all belonging to them dwelt in Haran, for they did not come with Abraham to the land of Canaan. And children were born to Nahor which Milcah the daughter of Haran, and sister to Sarah, Abraham's wife, bore for him. And these are the names of those that were born to him, Az, Buz, Kemuel, Keezd, Chazo, Pildash, Tidlaph, and Bethuel, being 8 sons. These are the children of Milcah, who she bore for Nahor, Abraham's brother. Also, Nahor had a concubine, and her name was Rumah. Also, she bore to Nahor Zabok, Gachesh, Takash, and Macha, being 4 sons. And the children who were born to Nahor were 12 sons besides his daughters. Also, they had children born to them in Haran. And the children of Uz the firstborn of Nahor were Abi, Cherith, Gadding, Melis, and Deborah their sister. And the sons of Buz were Berashel, Nameth, Sheva, and Madanu. And the sons of Kemuel were Aram and Rechab. And the sons of Keezd were Anamlech, Meshai, Benon, and Yiphi. And the sons of Chazo were Pildash, Mechai, and Ophir. And the sons of Pildash were Arad, Chamim, Merd, and Moloch. And the sons of Tidlaph were Mushan, Cushan, and Mutzi. And the children of Bethuel were Sechar, Laban, and their sister Rebekah. These are the families of the children of Nahor that were born to them in Haran. And Aram the son of Kemuel and Rechab his brother went away from Haran, and they found a valley in the land by the river Euphrates. And they built a city there, and they called the name of the city after the name of Pether the son of Aram, that is Aram Naharaim to this day. Also, the children of Keezd went to dwell where they could find a place, and they went. And they found a valley opposite to the land of Shinar, and they dwelt there. And there they built themselves a city, and they called the name of the city Keezd after the name of their father, that is the land Casdim to today, and the Casdim dwelt in that land, and they were fruitful, and multiplied exceedingly. And Terah, the father of Nahor and Abraham, went and took another wife in his old age, and her name was Pelilah. And she conceived and bore him a son, and he called his name Zobah. And Terah lived 25 years after he begot Zobah. And Terah died in that year, that is in the 35th year of the birth of Isaac son of Abraham. And the days of Terah were 205 years, and he was buried in Haran. And Zobah, the son of Terah, lived for 30 years. And he begot Aram, Achliz, and Merich. And Aram son of Zobah son of Terah had 3 wives, and he begat 12 sons and 3 daughters. And Yahuwah gave to Aram the son of Zobah riches and possessions, and abundance of cattle, and flocks and herds, and the man increased greatly. Furthermore, Aaron the son of Zobah and his brother and all his household journeyed from Haran. And they went to dwell where they should find a place, for their property was too great to remain in Haran. For they could not stop in Haran together with their brethren the children of Neher. And Aram the son of Zobah went with his brethren, and they found a valley at a distance toward the eastern country. And they dwelt there. Also, they built a city there, and they called the name of it Aram, after the name of their eldest brother. That is Aram Zobah to this day. And Isaac the son of Abraham was growing up during those days, and Abraham his father taught him the way of Yahuwah to know Yahuwah, and Yahuwah was with him. And when Isaac was 37 years old, Ishmael his brother was going about with him in the tent. And Ishmael boasted of himself to Isaac, saying, I was 13 years old when Yahuwah spoke to my father to circumcise us, and I did according to the word of Yahuwah which he spoke to my father, and I gave my soul to Yahuwah, and I did not transgress his word which he commanded my father. And Isaac answered Ishmael, saying, Why do you boast to me about this, about a little bit of your flesh that you took from your body, concerning which Yahuwah commanded you? As Yahuwah lives, the God of my father Abraham, if Yahuwah should say to my father, Now, take your son Isaac and bring him up an offering before me, I would not refrain but I would joyfully consent to it. And Yahuwah heard the word that Isaac spoke to Ishmael, and it seemed good in the sight of Yahuwah, and he thought to test Abraham in this matter. And the day arrived when the sons of God came and placed themselves before Yahuwah. Also, Satan came with the sons of God before Yahuwah. And Yahuwah said to Satan, Where have you come from? And Satan answered Yahuwah, and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And Yahuwah said to Satan, What is your word to me concerning all the children of the earth? Therefore Satan answered Yahuwah and said, I have seen all the children of the earth who serve you, and remember you, when they require anything from you. However, when you give them the thing which they require from you, they sit at ease, and forsake you. Then they will not remember you any more. Have you seen Abraham, the son of Terah, who had no children at first, and he served you and erected altars to you wherever he came? And he brought up offerings upon them, and he proclaimed your name continually to all the children of the earth. And now that his son Isaac is born to him, he has forsaken you, he has made a great feast for all the inhabitants of the land, that he has forgotten Yahuwah. For among all that he did not bring you an offering, not an ascension offering, nor a restoration offering, not ox, lamb, nor goat of all that he killed on the day that his son was weaned. Even from the time of his son's birth until now, being 37 years, he built no altar before you, nor brought any offering to you, for he saw that you gave what he requested before you. Therefore he forsook you. And Yahuwah said to Satan, Have you thus considered my servant Abraham? For there is no one like him upon earth, a perfect and an upright man before me, one that fears God and avoids evil. As I live, were I to say to him, Bring up Isaac your son before me, he would not withhold him from me, much more if I told him to bring up an ascension offering before me from his flock or herds. And Satan answered Yahuwah, and said, Now then, speak to Abraham as you have said, and you will see if he will not transgress and cast aside your words today. Chapter 23. At that time the word of Yahuwah came to Abraham, and he said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said to him, Now take your son, your only son whom you love, even Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah. Then offer him there for an ascension offering upon one of the mountains that will be shown to you, for you will see a cloud and the glory of Yahuwah there. And Abraham said within himself, How will I separate my son Isaac from Sarah his mother, in order to bring him up for an ascension offering before Yahuwah? And Abraham came into the tent, and he sat before Sarah his wife. Then he spoke these words to her, My son Isaac has grown up, and he has not studied the service of his God for some time. Now, tomorrow I will go and bring him to Shem and Eber his son, and there he will learn the ways of Yahuwah. For they will teach him to know Yahuwah, as well as to know that when he prays continually before Yahuwah, he will answer him. Therefore he will know the way of serving Yahuwah his God. And Sarah said, You have spoken well. Go, my lord, and do to him as you have said, but do not remove him at a great distance from me, nor let him remain there too long, for my soul is bound within his soul. And Abraham said to Sarah, My daughter, let us pray to Yahuwah our God, so that he may do good with us. And Sarah took her son Isaac, and he abode all that night with her. And she kissed and embraced him, and gave him instructions until morning. And she said to him, O my son, how can my soul separate itself from you? Also she kissed him and embraced him. Then she gave Abraham instructions concerning him. And Sarah said to Abraham, O my lord, I pray you take heed of your son, and place your eyes over him, for I have no other son nor daughter but him. O do not forsake him. If he is hungry, give him bread, and if he is thirsty, give him water to drink. Do not let him go on foot, nor let him sit in the sun, nor let him go by himself in the road, nor force him from whatever he may desire. But whatever he may say to you, do for him." And Sarah wept bitterly the whole night on account of Isaac, and she gave him instructions until morning. And in the morning Sarah selected a very fine and beautiful garment from those garments which she had in the house that Abimelech had given to her, and she dressed Isaac her son with it. Then she put a turban upon his head, and she enclosed a precious stone in the top of the turban. Also she gave them provision for the road. Then they went, and Isaac went with his father Abraham, and some of their servants accompanied them to see them off the road. Furthermore, Sarah went out with them, and she accompanied them upon the road to see them off. But they said to her, "Return to the tent." And when Sarah heard the words of her son Isaac, she wept bitterly, and Abraham her husband wept with her. Also their son wept a great weeping with them. So too those who went with them wept greatly. Then Sarah caught hold of her son Isaac, and she held him in her arms, and she embraced him and continued to weep with him. And Sarah said, "Who knows if I will ever see you again after this day?" And they still wept together, Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac, and all those that accompanied them on the road wept with them. Afterward Sarah turned away from her son, weeping bitterly. Also all her men servants and maid servants returned with her to the tent. Furthermore, Abraham went with Isaac his son to bring him up as an offering before Yahuwah, like he had commanded him. And Abraham took 2 of his young men with him, Ishmael the son of Hagar, and Eliezer his servant. And they went together with them. And while they were walking in the road, the young men spoke these words to themselves. And Ishmael said to Eliezer, "Now my father Abraham is going with Isaac to bring him up for an ascension offering to Yahuwah, like he commanded him. Now, when he returns, he will give all that he possesses to me, to inherit after him, for I am his firstborn." And Eliezer answered Ishmael and said, "Surely Abraham casted you away with your mother, and sware that you would not inherit anything of all he possesses. So to whom will he give all that he has, with all his treasures? Only to me, his servant, who has been faithful in his house, who has served him night and day, and has done all that he desired from me. To me he will bequeath all that he possesses at his death." And while Abraham was proceeding with his son Isaac along the road, Satan came and appeared to Abraham in the figure of a very aged man, humble and of contrite spirit. And he approached Abraham and said to him, "Are you silly or brutish, that you go to do this thing today to your only son? For God gave you a son in your latter days, in your old age. And will you go and slaughter him today because he committed no violence? And will you cause the soul of your only son to perish from the earth? Do you not know and understand that this thing cannot be from Yahuwah? For Yahuwah cannot demand such evil upon earth to say to him, 'Go slaughter your child.'" And Abraham heard this and knew that it was the word of Satan, who endeavored to draw him aside from the way of Yahuwah. But Abraham would not hearken to the voice of Satan, and Abraham rebuked him so that he went away. However, Satan returned and came to Isaac. Moreover, he appeared to Isaac in the figure of a young man, attractive and well-favored. Then he approached Isaac and said to him, "Do you not know and understand that your old silly father is bringing you to the slaughter today for nothing? Now therefore, my son, do not listen nor attend to him, for he is a silly old man, and do not let your precious soul and beautiful figure be lost from the earth." And Isaac heard this, and said to Abraham, "Have you heard, my father, what this man has spoken? He has even spoken this." So Abraham answered his son Isaac and said to him, "Take heed of him, and do not listen to his words, nor attend to him, for he is Satan, endeavoring to draw us aside today from the commands of God." And Abraham still rebuked Satan, and Satan went from them. And seeing that he could not prevail over them, he hid himself from them. Then he went and passed before them in the road, and he transformed himself into a large brook of water in the road. Moreover, Abraham and Isaac and his 2 young men reached that place. Then they saw a brook that was large and powerful as the mighty waters, and they entered the brook and passed through it. At first the waters reached their legs. Then they went deeper in the brook, and the waters reached up to their necks. And they were all terrified because of the water. And while they were going over the brook, Abraham recognized that place, and he knew that there was no water there before. Therefore Abraham said to his son Isaac, "I know this place in which there was no brook nor water. Now therefore it is this Satan who does all this to us, to draw us aside today from the commands of God." So Abraham rebuked him and said to him, "The Lord rebuke you, O Satan, begone from us, for we go by the commands of God." And Satan was terrified at the voice of Abraham, and he went away from them, and the place again became dry land, like it was at first. And Abraham went with Isaac toward the place that God had told him. And on the 3rd day Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw the place at a distance which God had told him of. And a pillar of fire appeared to him that reached from the earth to the heavens, and a cloud of glory upon the mountain, and the glory of Yahuwah was seen in the cloud. And Abraham said to Isaac, My son, do you see in that mountain, which we perceive at a distance, what I see upon it? And Isaac answered and said to his father, I see in lo a pillar of fire, and a cloud, and the glory of Yahuwah is seen upon the cloud. And Abraham knew that his son Isaac was accepted before Yahuwah for an ascension offering. Then Abraham said to Eliezer and to Ishmael his son, Do you also see what we see upon the mountain which is at a distance? And they answered and said, We see nothing more than like the other mountains of the earth. So Abraham knew that they were not accepted before Yahuwah to go with them. And Abraham said to them, Abide here with the ass, while I and Isaac, my son, will go to yonder mount and worship there before Yahuwah, and then return to you. Therefore Eliezer and Ishmael remained in that place, like Abraham had commanded. Furthermore, Abraham took wood for an ascension offering and placed it upon his son Isaac. Then he took the fire and the knife, and they both went to that place. And when they were going along, Isaac said to his father, Behold, I see the fire and wood, but where is the lamb that is to be the ascension offering before Yahuwah? And Abraham answered his son Isaac, saying, The Lord has chosen you, my son, to be a perfect ascension offering instead of the lamb. Therefore Isaac said to his father, I will do all that Yahuwah spoke to you with joy and cheerfulness of heart. And Abraham again spoke to Isaac his son, Is there any thought or counsel in your heart concerning this that is not proper? Tell me, my son, I pray you, O my son, do not conceal it from me. And Isaac answered his father Abraham and said to him, O my father, like Yahuwah lives and as your soul lives, there is nothing in my heart to cause me to deviate either to the right or to the left from the word that he has spoken to you. No limb nor muscle has moved nor stirred at this, nor is there any thought or evil counsel concerning this in my heart. But I am of a joyful and cheerful heart in this matter, and I say, Blessed is Yahuwah who has chosen me today to be an ascension offering before him. And Abraham greatly rejoiced at the words of Isaac. And they went on and came together to that place that Yahuwah had spoken of. And Abraham approached to build the altar in that place. Also Abraham was weeping. Moreover, Isaac took stones and mortar until they had finished building the altar. And Abraham took the wood and placed it in order upon the altar which he had built. Then he took his son Isaac and bound him in order to place him upon the wood which was upon the altar, to slay him for an ascension offering before Yahuwah. And Isaac said to his father, Bind me securely, and then place me upon the altar lest I should turn, and move, and break loose from the force of the knife upon my flesh, and profane the ascension offering by this. And Abraham did so. Then Isaac continued and said to his father, O my father, once you have slain me and burnt me for an offering, take what remains of my ashes with you to bring to Sarah, my mother. Then say to her, This is the sweet-smelling savor of Isaac. But do not tell her this if she is sitting near a well or upon any high place, lest she should cast her soul after me and die. And Abraham heard the words of Isaac, and he lifted up his voice and wept when Isaac spoke these words. And Abraham's tears gushed down upon Isaac his son, and Isaac wept bitterly, and he said to his father, Hasten yourself, O my father, and do with me the will of Yahuwah our God, like he has commanded you. And the hearts of Abraham and Isaac rejoiced at this thing which Yahuwah had commanded them. But the eye wept bitterly while the heart rejoiced. And Abraham bound his son Isaac, and placed him on the altar upon the wood, and Isaac stretched forth his neck upon the altar before his father. Then Abraham stretched forth his hand to take the knife to slay his son as an ascension offering before Yahuwah. At that time the angels of mercy came before Yahuwah, and spoke to him concerning Isaac, saying, O Lord, you are a merciful and compassionate king over all that you have created in the heavens and earth, and you support them all. Therefore give ransom and redemption instead of your servant Isaac, and have pity and compassion upon Abraham and Isaac his son, who are performing your commands today. Have you seen, O Lord, how Isaac, the son of Abraham your servant, is bound down to the slaughter like an animal? Now therefore let your pity be roused for them, O Lord. At that time Yahuwah appeared to Abraham, and called to him from the heavens, and said to him, Do not lay your hand upon the lad, nor you anything to him. For now I know that you fear God by performing this act, and by not withholding your son, your only son, from me. And Abraham lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, a ram was caught in a thicket by his horns. That was the ram that the Lord God had created in the earth on the day that he made the earth and heavens. For Yahuwah had prepared this ram from that day to be an ascension offering instead of Isaac. And this ram was advancing to Abraham, when Satan caught hold of him and entangled his horns in the thicket, so that he might not advance to Abraham, in order that Abraham might slay his son. And Abraham, seeing the ram advancing to him and Satan withholding him, fetched him and brought him before the altar, and he loosened his son Isaac from his binding, and he put the ram in his stead. And Abraham killed the ram upon the altar, and brought it up as an offering in the place of his son Isaac. And Abraham sprinkled some of the blood of the ram upon the altar, and he exclaimed and said, This is in the place of my son, and may this be considered today as the blood of my son before Yahuwah. And all that Abraham did on this occasion by the altar, he would exclaim and say, This is in the place of my son, and may it be considered before Yahuwah today in the place of my son. Then Abraham finished the entire service by the altar, and the service was accepted before Yahuwah, and was considered as if it had been Isaac. Furthermore, Yahuwah blessed Abraham and his seed on that day. However, Satan went to Sarah, and he appeared to her in the figure of an old man, very humble and meek. But Abraham was still engaged in the ascension offering before Yahuwah. And he said to her, Do you not know all the work that Abraham has made with your only son today? For he took Isaac and built an altar, and killed him, and brought him up as a sacrifice upon the altar. And Isaac cried and wept before his father. But he did not look at him, nor did he have compassion upon him. Furthermore, Satan repeated these words. Then he went away from her, and Sarah heard all the words of Satan. Therefore she imagined him to be an old man from amongst the sons of men who had been with her son, and had come to tell her these things. And Sarah lifted up her voice, and wept, and cried out bitterly on account of her son. Then she threw herself upon the ground, and she cast dust upon her head. Then she said, O my son, Isaac my son, O that I had died today instead of you. And she continued to weep. Then she said, It grieves me for you, O my son Isaac, O that I had died in your place today. And she still continued to weep, and said, It grieves me for you, after I have reared you and have brought you up. Now my joy is turned into mourning over you. I, who longed for you, and cried, and prayed to God until I bore you at 90 years old. And now you have been served by a knife and fire to be made an offering today. But I console myself with you, my son, in it being the word of Yahuwah, for you performed the command of your God. For who can transgress the word of our God, in whose hands is the soul of every living creature? You are just, O Lord our God, for all your works are good and righteous. For I, too, am rejoiced by the word that you commanded. And while my eye weeps bitterly, my heart rejoices. Then Sarah laid her head upon the bosom of one of her handmaids, and she became as still as a stone. Afterward she rose up and went about making inquiries until she came to Hebron. Then she inquired of all those who she met walking in the road. But no one could tell her what had happened to her son. And she came with her maidservants and men servants to Kiriath Arba, which is Hebron, and she asked concerning her son. And she remained there while she sent some of her servants to seek where Abraham had gone with Isaac. They went to seek him in the house of Shem and Eber, but they could not find him. And they searched throughout the land, and he was not there. And behold, Satan came to Sarah in the shape of an old man, and he came and stood before her, and he said to her, I spoke falsely to you, for Abraham did not kill his son, and he is not dead. And when she heard the word, her joy was so exceedingly violent on account of her son, such that her soul went out by joyfulness. He died and was gathered to her people. And when Abraham had finished his service, he returned with his son Isaac to his young men. Then they rose up and went together to Beersheba, and they came home. And Abraham searched for Sarah, but could not find her. So he made inquiries concerning her, and they said to him, She went as far as Hebron to seek you both, where you had gone, for thus was she informed. Therefore Abraham and Isaac went to her to Hebron, and when they found that she was dead, they lifted up their voices and wept bitterly over her. And Isaac fell upon his mother's face, and wept over her, and he said, O my mother, why have you left me? And where have you gone? Oh, why have you left me? Furthermore, Abraham and Isaac wept greatly. Even all their servants wept with them on account of Sarah. Then they mourned over her a great and heavy mourning. Chapter 24. And the life of Sarah was 127 years. Thus Sarah died. And Abraham rose up from before his dead to seek a burial place to bury his wife, Sarah. And he went and spoke to the children of Heth, the inhabitants of the land, saying, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you in your land. Give me a possession of a burial place in your land, so that I may bury my dead from before me. And the children of Heth said to Abraham, Behold, the land is before you. Bury your dead in your choice of our sepulchres, for no man will withhold you from burying your dead. Therefore Abraham said to them, If you are agreeable to this, go and entreat for me to Ephron, the son of Zachar, requesting that he may give me the cave of Machpelah, which is in the end of his field, and I will purchase it from him for whatever he desires for it. And Ephron dwelt among the children of Heth, and they went and called for him, and he came before Abraham. And Ephron said to Abraham, Behold, all you require your servant will do. However, Abraham said, No, but I will buy the cave and the field which you have for value, in order that it may be for a possession of a burial place forever. So Ephron answered and said, Behold, the field and the cave are before you, give whatever you desire. Therefore, and Abraham said, Only at full value will I buy it from your hand, and from the hands of those that go in at the gate of your city, and from the hand of your seed forever. And Ephron and all his brethren heard this, and Abraham weighed to Ephron 400 shekels of silver in the hands of Ephron and in the hands of all his brethren. And Abraham wrote this transaction, and he wrote it and testified it with 4 witnesses. And these are the names of the witnesses: Amigal son of Abishna the Hittite, Adakoram son of Ashenach the Hivite, Abdon son of Achurim the Gomrite, Bagdal the son of Abidish the Zidonite. And Abraham took the book of the purchase, and placed it in his treasures. And these are the words that Abraham wrote in the book: that the cave and the field Abraham bought from Ephron the Hittite, and from his seed, and from those that go out of his city, and from their seed forever, are to be a purchase to Abraham and to his seed and to those that go from his loins, for a possession of a burial place forever. And he put a signet to it and testified it with witnesses. And the field and the cave that was in it and all that place were made sure to Abraham and to his seed after him, from the children of Heth. Behold, it is before Mamre in Hebron, which is in the land of Canaan. And after this Abraham buried his wife Sarah there, and that place and all its boundary became to Abraham and to his seed for a possession of a burial place. And Abraham buried Sarah with pomp as observed at the interment of kings, and she was buried in very fine and beautiful garments. And her bier was Shem, his sons Eber and Abimelech, together with Aner, Ashkel and Mamre, and all the grandees of the land followed her bier. And the days of Sarah were 127 years, and she died. And Abraham made a great and heavy mourning, and he performed the rites of mourning for 7 days. And all the inhabitants of the land comforted Abraham and Isaac his son on account of Sarah. And when the days of their mourning passed by, Abraham sent away his son Isaac, and he went to the house of Shem and Eber to learn the ways of Yahuwah and his instructions, and Abraham remained there for 3 years. At that time Abraham rose up with all his servants, and they went and returned homeward to Beersheba, and Abraham and all his servants remained in Beersheba. And at the revolution of the year Abimelech king of the Philistines died in that year. He was 193 years old at his death. And Abraham went with his people to the land of the Philistines, and they comforted the whole household and all his servants, and he then turned and went home. And it was after the death of Abimelech that the people of Gerar took Abimelech his son, and he was only 12 years old, and they made him lion in the place of his father. And they called his name Abimelech after the name of his father, for thus was it their custom to do in Gerar. And Abimelech reigned instead of Abimelech his father, and he sat upon his throne. And Lot the son of Haran also died during those days, in the 39th year of the life of Isaac. And all the days that Lot lived were 140 years, thus he died. And these are the children of Lot that were born to him by his daughters. The name of the firstborn was Moab, and the name of the second was Benami. And the 2 sons of Lot went and took themselves wives from the land of Canaan, and they bore children to them. And the children of Moab were Ed, Maon, Tarsus, and Canval, 4 sons. These are fathers to the children of Moab to this day. And all the families of the children of Lot went to dwell wherever they should light upon, for they were fruitful and increased abundantly. And they went and built themselves cities in the land where they dwelt, and they called the names of the cities which they built after their own names. And Nahor the son of Terah, brother to Abraham, died during those days, in the 40th year of the life of Isaac. And all the days of Nahor were 172 years, thus he died, and was buried in Haran. And when Abraham heard that his brother was dead, he grieved sadly, and he mourned over his brother many days. And Abraham called for Eliezer his head servant, to give him orders concerning his house, and he came and stood before him. And Abraham said to him, Behold, I am old, I do not know the day of my death, for I am advanced in days. Now therefore rise up, go, and do not take a wife for my son from this place and from this land, from the daughters of the Canaanites amongst whom we dwell. But go to my land and to my birthplace, and take a wife for my son from there. And may the Lord God of the heavens and earth, who took me from my father's house, and brought me to this place, and said to me, I will give this land for an inheritance to you seed forever. He will send his angel before you and prosper your way, so that you may obtain a wife for my son from my family and from my father's house. And the servant answered his master Abraham and said, Behold, I go to your birthplace and to your father's house, and take a wife for your son from there. But if the woman is not to follow me to this land, I will take your son back to the land of your birthplace. And Abraham said to him, Take heed that ye do not bring my son back here again, for Yahuwah before whom I have walked, he will send his angel before you and prosper your way. Therefore Eliezer did as Abraham ordered him, and Eliezer swore to Abraham his master upon this matter. And Eliezer rose up and took 10 camels of the camels of his master, and 10 men from his master's servants with him. And they rose up and went to Haran, the city of Abraham and Nahor, in order to fetch a wife for Isaac the son of Abraham. And while they were gone, Abraham sent to the house of Shem and Eber, and they brought his son Isaac from there. And Isaac came home to his father's house to Beersheba, while Eliezer and his men came to Haran. And they stopped in the city by the watering place, and he made his camels to kneel down by the water. And they remained there. And Eliezer, Abraham's servant, prayed and said, O God of Abraham, my master, I pray you, send me good speed today and show kindness to my master, so that you should appoint a wife for my master's son from his family today. And Jehu hearkened to the voice of Eliezer for the sake of his servant Abraham, and he happened to meet with the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, brother to Abraham, and Eliezer came to her house. And Eliezer related to them all his concerns, and that he was Abraham's servant, and they greatly rejoiced at him. And they all blessed Yahuwah, who brought this thing about, and they gave him Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, for a wife for Isaac. And the young woman was of very attractive appearance. She was a virgin, and Rebekah was 10 years old in those days. And Bethuel and Laban and his children made a feast on that night. So Eliezer and his men came and ate and drank and rejoiced there on that night. And Eliezer rose up in the morning, he and the men who were with him. And he called to the whole household of Bethuel, saying, Send me away that I may go to my master. And they rose up and sent away Rebekah and her nurse Deborah, the daughter of Uz, and they gave her silver and gold, men servants and maid servants, and they blessed her. And they sent Eliezer away with his men. And the servants took Rebekah, and he went and returned to his master to the land of Canaan. And Isaac took Rebekah, and she became his wife. And he brought her into the tent. And Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of his uncle Bethuel, for a wife. Chapter 25. And it was at that time that Abraham again took a wife in his old age, and her name was Keturah, from the land of Canaan. And she bore to him Zimran, Jokshan, Medan, Midian, Ishbak, and Shuach, being 6 sons. And the children of Zimran were Abihan, Malach, and Narim. And the sons of Jokshan were Sheba and Dedan. And the sons of Medan were Amida, Joab, Gachai, Elisha, and Nothach. And the sons of Midian were Ephah, Epher, Chanok, Abida, and Eldah. And the sons of Ishbak were Machiro, Beadua, and Tader. And the sons of Shuach were Bildad, Mamded, Munan, and Meben. All these are the families of the children of Keturah the Canaanite woman, which she bore to Abraham the Hebrew. And Abraham sent all these away, and he gave them gifts, and they went away from his son Isaac to dwell wherever they should find a place. And all these went to the mountain at the east, and they built themselves 6 cities in which they dwelt to this day. But the children of Sheba and Dedan, children of Jokshan, with their children, did not dwell with their brethren in their cities, and they journeyed and encamped in the countries and wildernesses to this day. And the children of Midian, son of Abraham, went to the east of the land of Cush, and they there found a large valley in the eastern country, and they remained there and built a city, and they dwelt in it. That is the land of Midian to this day. And Midian dwelt in the city which he built, he and his 5 sons, and all belonging to him. And these are the names of the sons of Midian according to their names in their cities: Ephah, Epher, Chanok, Abida, and Eldah. And the sons of Ephah were Methach, Mishar, Avi, and Tizanua. And the sons of Epher were Ephron, Zur, Alaron, and Medan. And the sons of Chanok were Ruel, Rechem, Azi, Eliashub, and Elad. And the sons of Abida were Chur, Meled, Keriri, Molchai. And the sons of Eldah were Micah, and Rebah, and Melchi, and Gabal. These are the names of the Midianites according to their families. And afterward the families of Midian spread throughout the land of Midian. And these are the generations of Ishmael the son Abraham, whom Hagar, Sarah's handmaid, bore to Abraham. And Ishmael took a wife from the land of Egypt, and her name was Ribah, the same as Meribah. And Ribah bore to Ishmael Nebaioth, Kedar, Edbeel, Mibsam, and their sister Bosmath. And Ishmael cast away his wife Ribah, and she went from him and returned to Egypt to the house of her father, and she dwelt there, for she had been very bad in the sight of Ishmael, and in the sight of his father Abraham. And Ishmael afterward took a wife from the land of Canaan, and her name was Malcheth, and she bore to him Nishma, Duma, Massa, Chaded, Tema, Yether, Naphish, and Kedma. These are the sons of Ishmael, and these are their names, being 12 princes according to their nations. And the families of Ishmael afterward spread forth, and Ishmael took his children and all the property that he had gained, together with the souls of his household and all belonging to him, and they went to dwell where they should find a place. And they went and dwelt near the wilderness of Paran, and their dwelling was from Havilah to Shur, that is before Egypt as you come toward Assyria. And Ishmael and his sons dwelt in the land, and they had children born to them, and they were fruitful and increased abundantly. And these are the names of the sons of Nebaioth the firstborn of Ishmael: Mend, Send, Maon. And the sons of Kedar were Alian, Kezem, Chamad, and Eli. And the sons of Edbeel were Chamad and Jabin. And the sons of Mibsam were Obadiah, Ebedmelech, and Ush. These are the families of the children of Ribah the wife of Ishmael. And the sons of Mishma the son of Ishmael were Shammua, Sekarian, and Opt. And the sons of Duma were Keist, Ali, Machmad, and Aimed. And the sons of Massa were Melon, Mula, and Ebidadin. And the sons of Chadad were Azar, Minzar, and Ebedmelech. And the sons of Tema were Ser, Sadon, and Yekol. And the sons of Yether were Merith, Yaish, Alio, and Patshoth. And the sons of Naphish were Ebtamed, Abiasaph, and Mir. And the sons of Kidma were Caleb, Takti, and Omer. These were the children of Malchith the wife of Ishmael according to their families. All these are the families of Ishmael according to their generations, and they dwelt in those lands in which they had built themselves cities to this day. And Rebekah the daughter of Bethuel, the wife of Abraham's son Isaac, was barren during those days. She had no offspring. And Isaac dwelt with his father in the land of Canaan. And Jehuah was with Isaac. And Arpachshad the son of Shem the son of Noah died during those days, in the 48th year of the life of Isaac. And all the days that Arpachshad lived were 438 years. Thus he died. Chapter 26. Chapter 26. And in the 59th year of the life of Isaac the son of Abraham, Rebekah his wife was still barren in those days. And Rebekah said to Isaac, Truly I have heard, my lord, that your mother Sarah was barren in her days until my lord Abraham, your father, prayed for her and she conceived by him. Now therefore, stand up, pray you also to God, and he will hear your prayer and remember us through his mercies. And Isaac answered his wife Rebekah, saying, Abraham has already prayed for me God to multiply his seed. Now therefore, this barrenness must proceed to us from you. And Rebekah said to him, But arise now you also and pray, that Jehu may hear your prayer and grant me children. Therefore Isaac hearkened to the words of his wife. And Isaac and his wife rose up, and went to the land of Moriah to pray there, and to seek Jehuah. And when they had reached that place, Isaac stood up and prayed to Jehuah on account of his wife, because she was barren. And Isaac said, O Lord God of the heavens and earth, whose goodness and mercies fill the earth, you who took my father from his father's house, and from his birthplace, and did bring him to this land, and did say to him, To your seed will I give the land. And you did promise him, and did declare to him, I will multiply your seed as the stars of the heavens, and as the sand of the sea. Now may your words be verified which you did speak to my father. For you are Jehu our God. Our eyes are toward you to give us seed of men, like you promised us. For you are Jehu our God, and our eyes are directed toward you only. And Jehuah heard the prayer of Isaac the son of Abraham, and Jehuah was entreated of him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. And in about 7 months after the children struggled together within her, and it pained her greatly that she was wearied on account of them. And she said to all the women who were in the land, Did such a thing happen to you, like it has to me? And they said to her, No. And she said to them, Why am I alone in this amongst all the women that were upon earth? And she went to the land of Moriah to seek Jehuah on account of this. And she went to Shem and Eber his son to make inquiries of them in this matter, and that they should seek Jehuah in this thing respecting her. And she also asked Abraham to seek and inquire of Jehuah about all that had befallen her. And they all inquired of Jehuah concerning this matter, and they brought her word from Jehuah, and told her, 2 children are in your womb, and 2 nations will rise from them. And one nation will be stronger than the other, and the greater will serve the younger. And when her days to be delivered were completed, she knelt down, and behold, there were twins in her womb, like Jehuah had spoken to her. And the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and all the people of the land called his name Esau, saying that this one was made complete from the womb. And after that his brother came, and his hand took hold of Esau's heel. Therefore they called his name Jacob. And Isaac, the son of Abraham, was 60 years old when he begat them. And the boys grew up to their 15th year, and they came amongst the society of men. Esau was a designing and deceitful man, and an expert hunter in the field, and Jacob was a man perfect and wise, dwelling in tents, feeding flocks, and learning the instructions of Jehuah, and the commands of his father and mother. And Isaac and the children of his household dwelt with his father Abraham in the land of Canaan, like God had commanded them. And Ishmael the son of Abraham went with his children and all belonging to them, and they returned there to the land of Havilah, and they dwelt there. And all the children of Abraham's concubines went to dwell in the land of the east, for Abraham had sent them away from his son, and had given them presents, and they went away. And Abraham gave all that he had to his son Isaac, and he also gave him all his treasures. And he commanded him, saying, Do you not know and understand Jehuah is God in the heavens and earth? And there is no other beside him. And it was he who took me from my father's house, and from my birthplace, and gave me all the delights upon earth, who delivered me from the counsel of the wicked, for in him did I trust. And he brought me to this place, and he delivered me from Ur-Kasdim. And he said to me, I give all these lands to your seed, and they will inherit them when they keep my commandments, my statutes, and my judgments, so that I have commanded you, and which I will command them. Now therefore, my son, hearken to my voice, and keep the commandments of Yahuwah your God, which I commanded you. Do not turn from the right way either to the right or to the left, in order that it may be well with you and your children after you forever. And remember the wonderful works of Yahuwah, and his kindness that he has shown toward us, in having delivered us from the hands of our enemies, and Yahuwah our God caused them to fall into our hands. Now therefore, keep all that I have commanded you, and turn not away from the commandments of your God, and serve no one beside him, in order that it may be well with you and your seed after you, and teach you your children and your seed the instructions of Yahuwah and his commandments, and teach them the upright way in which they should go, in order that it may be well with them forever. And Isaac answered his father and said to him, I will do all that my Lord has commanded, and I will not depart from the commands of Yahuwah my God. I will keep all that he commanded me. And Abraham blessed his son Isaac, and also his children. And Abraham taught Jacob the instruction of Yahuwah and his ways. And it was at that time that Abraham died, in the 15th year of the life of Jacob and Esau, the sons of Isaac. And all the days of Abraham were 175 years. Thus he died and was gathered to his people in good old age, old and satisfied with days. Then Isaac and Ishmael his sons buried him. And when the inhabitants of Canaan heard that Abraham was dead, they all came with their kings and princes, and all their men to bury Abraham. And all the inhabitants of the land of Haran, and all the families of the house of Abraham, and all the princes, and grandees, and the sons of Abraham by the concubines, all came when they heard of Abraham's death, and they repaid Abraham's kindness, and comforted Isaac his son. Also they buried Abraham in the cave that he bought from Ephron the Hittite, and his children as a possession of a burial place. And all the inhabitants of Canaan, and all those who had known Abraham, wept for Abraham a whole year, and men and women mourned over him. And all the little children, and all the inhabitants of the land wept on account of Abraham, for Abraham had been good to them all, and because he had been upright with God and men. And a man who feared God like to Abraham has not arose, for he had feared his God from his youth, and had served Yahuwah, and had gone in all his ways during his life, from his childhood to the day of his death. And Yahuwah was with him, and delivered him from the counsel of Nimrod and his people. And when he made war with the 4 kings of Elam, he conquered them. And he brought all the children of the earth to the service of God, and he taught them the ways of Yahuwah, and caused them to know Yahuwah. And he formed a grove, and he planted a vineyard in it. And he had always prepared in his tent meat and drink to those who passed through the land, so that they might satisfy themselves in his house. And the Lord God delivered the whole earth on account of Abraham. And it was after the death of Abraham that God blessed his son Isaac and his children. Furthermore, Yahuwah was with Isaac like he had been with his father Abraham, for Isaac kept all the commandments of Yahuwah as Abraham his father had commanded him. He did not turn to the right or to the left from the right path which his father had commanded him. Chapter 27. And at that time, after the death of Abraham, Esau frequently went in the field to hunt. And Nimrod king of Babel, the same was Amraphel, also frequently went with his mighty men to hunt in the field, and to walk about with his men in the cool of the day. And Nimrod was observing Esau all the days, for jealousy was formed in the heart of Nimrod against Esau all the days. And on a certain day Esau went in the field to hunt, and he found Nimrod walking in the wilderness with his 2 men. Also, all his mighty men and his people were with him in the wilderness, but they removed at a distance from him, and they went from him in different directions to hunt. And Esau concealed himself for Nimrod, and he lurked for him in the wilderness. Furthermore, Nimrod and his men that were with him did not know him. Also, Nimrod and his men frequently walked around in the field at the cool of the day, and to know which of his men were hunting in the field. And Nimrod and 2 of his men that were with him came to the place where they were. Then Esau stirred suddenly from his lurking place, and drew his sword, and hurried, and ran to Nimrod, and cut off his head. And Esau fought a desperate fight with the 2 men who that were with Nimrod. And when they called out to him, Esau turned to them and smote them to death with his sword. And all the mighty men of Nimrod, who had left him to go to the wilderness, heard the cry at a distance. And they knew the voices of those 2 men, and they ran to know the cause of it. Then they found their king and the 2 men that were with him lying dead in the wilderness. And when Esau saw the mighty men of Nimrod coming at a distance, he fled, and escaped by it. And Esau took the valuable garments of Nimrod, which Nimrod's father had bequeathed to Nimrod, and with which Nimrod prevailed over the whole land. And he ran and concealed them in his house. Then Esau took those garments and ran into the city on account of Nimrod's men. Then he came to his father's house wearied and exhausted from fight. Furthermore, he was ready to die by grief when he approached his brother Jacob and sat before him. And he said to his brother Jacob, Behold, I will die today, and wherefore, then, do I want the birthright? And Jacob acted wisely with Esau in this matter, and Esau sold his birthright to Jacob for it was so brought about by Yahuwah. And Esau's portion in the cave of the field of Machpelah, which Abraham had bought from the children of Heth for the possession of a burial ground, Esau also sold to Jacob, and Jacob bought all this from his brother Esau for the value given. And Jacob wrote all of this in a book, and he testified the same with witnesses, and he sealed it, and the book remained in the hands of Jacob. And when Nimrod, the son of Cush, died, his men lifted him up and brought him in consternation, and buried him in his city. And all the days that Nimrod lived were 215 years, thus he died. And the days that Nimrod reigned upon the people of the land were 185 years. And Nimrod died by the sword of Esau in shame and contempt, and the seed of Abraham caused his death as he had seen in his dream. And at the death of Nimrod his kingdom became divided into many divisions, and all those parts that Nimrod reigned over were restored to the respective kings of the land, who recovered them after the death of Nimrod. And all the people of the house of Nimrod were for a long time enslaved to all the other kings of the land. Chapter 28. And during those days, after the death of Abraham, during that year, Yahuwah brought a heavy famine in the land. And while the famine was raging in the land of Canaan, Isaac rose up to go down to Egypt on account of the famine, like his father Abraham had done. And Yahuwah appeared that night to Isaac. And he said to him, Do not go down to Egypt, but rise and go to Gerar, to Abimelech king of the Philistines, and remain there until the famine is over. Therefore Isaac rose up and went to Gerar, like Yahuwah commanded him. And he remained there a full year. And when Isaac came to Gerar, the people of the land saw that Rebekah his wife was of a beautiful appearance. So the people of Gerar asked Isaac concerning his wife, and he said, She is my sister, for he was afraid to say she was his wife, lest the people of the land should slay him on account of her. And the princes of Abimelech went and praised the woman to the king, but he did not answer them, neither did he attend to their words. But he heard them say that Isaac declared her to be his sister, so the king reserved this within himself. And when Isaac had remained in the land for 3 months, Abimelech looked out at the window, and he saw, and behold, Isaac was laughing with Rebekah his wife, for Isaac dwelt in the other house belonging to the king, so that the house of Isaac was opposite the house of the king. And the king said to Isaac, What is this you have done to us in saying of your wife, She is my sister? How easily might one of the great men of the people might have lain with her. Then you would have brought guilt upon us. So Isaac said to Abimelech, Because I was afraid lest I die on account of my wife, therefore I said, She is my sister. At that time Abimelech gave orders to all his princes and great men. Therefore they took Isaac and Rebekah his wife, and they brought them before the king. And the king commanded that they should dress them in princely garments, and make them ride through the streets of the city, and proclaim throughout the land before them, saying, This is the man, and this is his wife. Whoever touches this man or his wife will surely die. Then Isaac returned to the king's house with his wife. Moreover, Yahuwah was with Isaac, and he continued to grow great and lacked nothing. And Yahuwah caused Isaac to find favor in the sight of Abimelech, and in the sight of all his subjects. And Abimelech acted well with Isaac, for Abimelech remembered the oath and the covenant that existed between his father and Abraham. And Abimelech said to Isaac, Behold, the whole earth is before you. Dwell wherever it may seem good in your sight until you should return to your land. And Abimelech gave Isaac fields and vineyards and the best part of the land of Gerar to sow and reap and eat the fruits of the ground until the days of the famine should have passed by. And Isaac sowed in that land and received 100-fold in the same year, and Yahuwah blessed him. And the man waxed great, and he had possession of flocks and possession of herds and great store of servants. And when the days of the famine had passed away, Yahuwah appeared to Isaac and said to him, Rise up, go from this place and return to your land, to the land of Canaan. So Isaac rose up and returned to Hebron, which is in the land of Canaan, he and all belonging to him as Yahuwah commanded him. And after this Shelach the son of Arpachshad died in that year, which is the 18th year of the lives of Jacob and Esau. And all the days that Shelach lived were 433 years, thus he died. At that time Isaac sent his younger son Jacob to the house of Shem and Eber, and he learned the instructions of Jehu. And Jacob remained in the house of Shem and Eber for 32 years. However, Esau his brother did not go, for he was not willing to go. So he remained in his father's house in the land of Canaan. And Esau was continually hunting in the fields to bring home what he could get. Esau did this every day. And Esau was a designing and deceitful man, one who hunted after the hearts of men and influenced them. And Esau was a valiant man in the field, and in the course of time he went as usual to hunt. And he came as far as the field of Seir, the same as Edom. And he remained in the land of Seir hunting in the field for a year and 4 months. Then Esau saw the daughter of a man of Canaan in the land of Seir. and her name was Jehidith, the daughter of Beri, son of Epher, from the families of Heth the son of Canaan. And Esau took her for a wife, and he came to her. Esau was 40-year-old when he took her, and he brought her to Hebron, the land of his father's dwelling place, and he dwelt there. And it came to pass, during those days, in the 110th year of the life of Isaac, that is in the 15th year of the life of Jacob, in that year Shem the son of Noah dead. Shem was 600 years old at his death. And when Shem died, Jacob returned to his father to Hebron, which is in the land of Canaan. And in the 56th year of the life of Jacob, people came from Haran, and Rebekah was told concerning her brother Laban the son of Bethuel. For the wife of Laban was barren during those days, and bore no children, and also all his handmaids bore none to him. But later Jehu remembered Adinah the wife of Laban, and she conceived and bore twin daughters. And Laban called the names of his daughters, the name of the elderly, and the name of the younger Rachel. And those people came and told these things to Rebekah, and Rebekah rejoiced greatly that Jehu had visited her brother and that he had gotten children.